Some of history's greatest puzzles are still waiting for a solution. This video explores 40 unsolved archaeological mysteries that baffle modern scientists. And by the end, your entire view of human history will be fundamentally reshaped. We will examine objects that should not exist for their time, like a 2,000-year-old astronomical computer found in a shipwreck. We will stand before monuments of impossible scale, built by cultures whose names we have forgotten. Each mystery is a gap in our collective story, a silent question etched into stone and soil that challenges everything we think we know about our past. How could ancient builders move 100-ton stones with perfect precision, and why would they create vast art only visible from the sky? The answers, if they exist, force us to reconsider the ingenuity and the spiritual depth of those who came before us. What does it say about us that our history remains so full of secrets? From the quiet depths of the Aegean Sea, a diver's hand closed around a shapeless mass of corrosion. It was the year 1900, and sponge divers working near the island of Antikythera had discovered an ancient Roman shipwreck, a treasure trove of statues and artifacts. Among the recovered items was what appeared to be little more than a lump of rock and bronze, heavily encrusted from 2 millennia under the sea. It was set aside with other less glamorous finds, its true nature completely unrecognized. For nearly half a century, it sat in a museum storage room in Athens, a forgotten curiosity. Then, one day, a museum employee noticed something strange. A crack in the crust revealed a glint of metal, and not just any metal, but the edge of a finely crafted gear. This was no simple lump, it was a machine. Careful cleaning and decades of painstaking study, including advanced X-ray imaging, would slowly unveil the truth. This object, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, is a breathtakingly complex astronomical calculator. It consists of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden frame about the size of a shoebox. Inscriptions on its casing serve as a user's manual, detailing its functions. By turning a hand crank on the side, the gears would move, and pointers on various dials would display the positions of the Sun, the Moon, and likely the 5 known planets. It could predict lunar phases, track the cycles of athletic games like the Olympics, and most astonishingly, forecast solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy. It was a portable model of the universe crafted over 2,000 years ago. The existence of such a device shatters our conventional timeline of technological history. We are taught that complex geared mechanisms like this did not appear in Europe until the cathedral clocks of the Middle Ages, more than 1,000 years later. The Antikythera Mechanism proves that the ancient Greeks of the Hellenistic period possessed a profound understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and precision engineering that we never knew they had. The great historian of science Derek J. Dusola Price dedicated much of his career to unraveling its secrets, calling it an artifact from an alien civilization, not because it was extraterrestrial, but because its sophistication was so completely out of place in our historical narrative. Yet for all we have learned, profound mysteries remain. We do not know who built it. Was it the workshop of the legendary Archimedes in Syracuse, or perhaps a genius in Rhodes or Pergamon? We do not know if it was a one-of-a-kind masterpiece commissioned for a wealthy patron, or if it was a single example of a known technology, a textbook model that other scholars used. If it was part of a tradition, where are all the others? Its lonely survival suggests that this pinnacle of knowledge was tragically fragile, a peak of understanding that was lost for centuries in the upheavals of the ancient world. The Antikythera Mechanism is not just a puzzle box of gears, it is a direct challenge. It asks us to wonder what other heights of human ingenuity have risen, only to be completely erased by time, leaving behind nothing but silent, corroded fragments in the deep. While the Antikythera Mechanism reveals a lost technology, another artifact conceals a lost language entirely. Deep within the vault of Yale University's Voynich Library rests a book that has defied understanding for over 600 years. Known as the Voynich Manuscript, it is a small volume of about 240 pages, each one a dense forest of the utterly strange. Its pages are filled with illustrations of plants that do not exist, intricate charts of celestial bodies in unfamiliar constellations, and countless nude female figures bathing in or connected by a network of strange green pipes and vessels. Most haunting of all, every image is surrounded by flowing text written in an elegant, unknown script. This is not a language anyone has ever seen before or since. The vellum pages have been dated to the early 15th century in northern Italy, but the author, the purpose, and the meaning of every single word remain a perfect enigma. For centuries, this book has passed from one curious owner to the next, a perpetual puzzle. It is named for Wilfrid Voynich, the Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912, bringing it into the modern spotlight and launching a century of failed attempts to crack its code. The roster of those who have tried reads like a who is who of intellectual history. World War II codebreakers, the very minds who cracked the German Enigma machine, turned their formidable skills to the Voynich and walked away baffled. Top linguists have applied statistical analysis, searching for the patterns that define all human language, and found only more confusion. In recent years, sophisticated artificial intelligence has been trained on the text, searching for a hidden structure or a match among known languages. The results are always the same. The script possesses the statistical properties of a real language, with word lengths and character frequencies that feel organized and intentional, yet it correlates with nothing on Earth. This leads to the central, tormenting question. Is it a brilliantly constructed nonsense, an elaborate and expensive hoax created centuries ago to dupe a wealthy patron? Or is it a genuine record of something profoundly lost? Perhaps it is a cipher, encoding alchemical or herbal knowledge meant only for a secretive few. Maybe it documents a unique dialect or a constructed language for a specific philosophical system, now extinct. Some even theorize it could be a pharmacopoeia of forgotten New World plants, recorded by an early European explorer. The true power of the Voynich Manuscript's mystery lies in this exquisite frustration. Here is a physical object, a book you could hold in your hands, made of materials we understand from a time period we know well. Yet it stands as an absolute wall between us and the past. It represents the humbling limit of our tools. We can carbon date the parchment, we can analyze the ink, we can scan every curve of every letter with unimaginable precision, but we cannot hear the voice of the person who wrote it. The manuscript is a silent witness, a story screaming in a language we may never learn to hear, reminding us that history keeps some of its diaries locked, and the keys are sometimes thrown away forever. Hidden within the dense jungles and river deltas of southern Costa Rica lie objects of impossible perfection. They are the stone spheres, or Esphoras de Piedra, hundreds of them carved from solid granodiorite by the Diquis culture centuries before European contact. To stand beside one is to feel a deep sense of awe, not just for its size, which can reach over 2 meters tall and weigh more than 15 tons, but for its flawless form. In a landscape of organic chaos, these spheres are geometrically perfect, their surfaces smooth to an almost unnatural roundness. They were not found alone. Early reports describe them arranged in mysterious patterns, sometimes in straight lines, sometimes in great triangles or parallelograms, placed with clear intention in plazas or near the entrances to important structures. The people who made them left no written records, and when agricultural expansion in the 1930s and 40s began, many of the spheres were rolled away from their original positions by tractors. used as garden ornaments, or even dynamited by treasure hunters believing they held gold inside. This displacement erased their archaeological context, scattering the clues to their arrangement like pieces of a puzzle thrown to the wind. The technical achievement is staggering. Granodiorite is an incredibly hard stone. The Dikwis artisans likely used a combination of techniques, first roughing out the shape with other, harder stones, then patiently grinding and polishing the surface with sand and water over generations. The precision required to achieve such symmetry without modern tools speaks of a profound, culturally embedded knowledge of geometry and stone working, a tradition passed down through families. But the why remains the heart of the mystery. Were these spheres astronomical markers, their alignments pointing to solstices or important stars, turning the landscape into a giant celestial calendar? Could they have been symbols of power, with the size and number of spheres denoting the status of a chief or a family, a silent language of social hierarchy carved in stone? Some researchers suggest they marked territorial boundaries or sacred pathways, their perfect shape representing the cosmos or the sun itself in a belief system we can no longer access. Today, the spheres that remain in protected sites sit in silent, solemn groups. They do not boast like pyramids or intimidate like fortresses. Their power is in their quiet, persistent presence. They are a testament to a culture that valued precision and cosmological order, who invested immense communal effort not in a monument to war, but in the creation of perfect, enigmatic forms. Each sphere is a world unto itself, a polished stone planet whose original orbit within the social and spiritual universe of its creators we are still struggling to chart. Their silent, perfect geometry is a language without a key, a beautiful question posed in stone that the jungle has long since forgotten how to answer. The desert floor of southern Peru holds a secret only the sky can tell. Stretching across nearly 200 square miles of the Pampa Colorada, a vast canvas of reddish-brown pebbles, are the Nazca Lines. These are not simple scratches in the earth. They are monumental geoglyphs, enormous designs created by the ancient Nazca people between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after. The technique was deceptively simple yet required immense communal effort. They carefully removed the top layer of dark, sun-baked stones, exposing the lighter, sandy soil beneath. This created a stark contrast, a line that could last for millennia in the rainless climate. But the scale is what defies belief. The lines form perfect geometric shapes, trapezoids and triangles that run for miles in arrow-straight paths. And then there are the figures, a hummingbird with wings outstretched over 300 feet, a spider nearly 150 feet long, a monkey with a spiraling tail. An orca, a dog, a tree, hands, and even a strange humanoid figure often called the astronaut. These are not small sketches. They are colossal artworks, some so large that their form becomes a chaotic jumble of lines when viewed from the ground. Their true majesty is only visible from hundreds of feet in the air, a perspective the Nazca themselves seemingly never had. This is the core of the enduring mystery. Why would a culture invest generations of labor to create breathtaking art they could never fully see? The theories are as varied as the lines themselves. One of the earliest and most persistent ideas is that they served as a giant astronomical calendar, with certain lines pointing to the rising or setting of the sun, moon, or specific stars during solstices or other significant dates. This would tie the people to the cycles of the heavens, using the landscape itself as a cosmic clock. Another compelling theory suggests the lines were sacred pathways walked during important rituals. Archaeologists have found ceramic shards and small offerings along some lines, hinting at ceremonial use. Perhaps individuals or priests walked these precise routes as a form of pilgrimage or prayer, a physical journey mirroring a spiritual one. The figures themselves might have served as spiritual symbols or clan totems, their outlines activated by the movement of people during ceremonies. The more sensational idea of ancient landing strips for visitors from other worlds captures the imagination but ignores the cultural and archaeological evidence found on the ground. The real wonder lies in the human achievement. Without airplanes, drones, or even hot air balloons, the Nazca planners executed designs of staggering scale and precision. They likely used simple surveying techniques, stakes, and ropes to plot out the larger geometric shapes, scaling up smaller models with an intuitive grasp of geometry. The coordination required speaks of a highly organized society with a shared, powerful vision. The Nazca Lines are not a message for us or for beings from the stars. They are a profound conversation between a people and their world, a ritual inscription onto the very skin of the earth. They force us to reconsider what art is for. Is its value only in being seen, or can it be in the very act of its creation, in the communal effort and the sacred intention behind each carefully moved stone? The desert keeps its silence, but the lines remain, a testament to a culture that saw the landscape not as a blank space, but as a living parchment for their most profound beliefs. The flawless geometry of the Nazca Lines required a masterful understanding of space, but another ancient culture achieved a precision that seems to defy the very tools of its time. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not merely a tomb, it is a mountain crafted by human hands, a monument of such staggering ambition that its construction methods have sparked debate for millennia. Built over 4,500 years ago as the eternal resting place for Pharaoh Khufu, it originally stood at 481 feet tall, composed of roughly 2.3 million individual limestone and granite blocks. Each of these stones weighs, on average, 2.5 tons, with some of the massive granite beams in the King's Chamber exceeding 50 tons. The raw statistics are overwhelming, but the true mystery lies in the how. How did a Bronze Age society without iron tools, pulleys, or the wheel achieve this? The prevailing theory involves an immense, highly organized workforce using a system of ramps. Yet, the design of such a ramp is its own puzzle. A single straight ramp to the summit would have required a volume of material rivaling the pyramid itself, and would have become impossibly steep. Alternatives propose a spiraling ramp wrapping the pyramid's exterior or a series of smaller, internal ramps, but definitive archaeological evidence for any single method remains elusive. Beyond the brute force of moving stone, the pyramid whispers of a profound, perhaps lost, knowledge. Its base is a near-perfect square, with sides aligned almost exactly to the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an error of just a fraction of a degree. This alignment to true north, achieved long before the magnetic compass, suggests an advanced understanding of astronomy, possibly using the stars to fix its orientation. The ratio of its perimeter to its height closely approximates 2 times pi, and its dimensions seem to encode mathematical relationships with the Earth's measurements, leading some to wonder if it was intended as a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere. Were these intentional mathematical messages from the architects, or are they simply fascinating coincidences revealed by our modern analysis? The internal complexity deepens the enigma. The Grand Gallery, with its towering corbelled ceiling, the mysterious air shafts pointing towards specific stars, and the immense, perfectly fitted granite sarcophagus in the King's Chamber, all speak of a mastery that goes far beyond stacking blocks. The most compelling theory is not about alien intervention, but about the power of a unified, motivated society. Egyptologists point to a permanent, skilled workforce of perhaps 20,000, not slaves, but laborers who were housed, fed, and honored for their work. They likely used copper saws with abrasive sand to cut stone, water or wooden sledges on lubricated tracks to transport blocks, and a combination of levers, rollers, and sheer human coordination to inch each piece into place. The real secret may have been organizational, a masterpiece of logistics, seasonal labor management, and a shared national purpose that turned an impossible project into a reality within a pharaoh's lifetime. The Great Pyramid, therefore, stands as a dual mystery. It is a physical challenge that tests our understanding of ancient engineering, but it is also a philosophical one. It forces us to ask what human communities are capable of when united by a common vision, and it humbles us with the realization that simple, brilliant techniques, once commonplace knowledge to a civilization, can vanish into history, leaving behind only a silent, majestic puzzle for the ages. Their silent, perfect geometry is a language without a key, a beautiful question posed in stone that the jungle has long since forgotten how to answer. Across an ocean, on the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, another stone language speaks of a different kind of ambition. On Rapa Nui, known to the world as Easter Island, nearly 1,000 massive stone figures stand or lie fallen, their gaze fixed inland. These are the Moai, monolithic statues carved from compressed volcanic ash between the 13th and 16th centuries. To stand before one is to feel a profound sense of otherworldly presence. Some are truly colossal, with the largest, named Paro, standing over 30 feet tall and weighing an estimated 82 tons. They were not simply erected where they were carved. The statues were meticulously shaped at a single quarry inside the volcanic crater of Rongorongo, where half-finished giants still remain embedded in the rock, as if caught in the act of being born. From there, they were moved, some of them many kilometers across the island's rugged terrain, to coastal stone platforms called ahu. How was this movement achieved? The island had no wheels, no draft animals, and no metal tools. For decades, the dominant theory involved log rollers and large teams of people slowly dragging the statues horizontally. But a compelling and dramatic alternative emerged from both local oral tradition and experimental archaeology. The idea is that the Moai were not dragged but walked. By using a system of ropes, teams could rock a statue from side to side, pivoting it forward with each sway, creating the illusion of a giant stone figure striding majestically across the landscape. Experiments with smaller concrete replicas have shown this method to be surprisingly efficient and possible with a coordinated group. Yet, this walking theory is not without its critics, who point to the risks of damaging the statue's delicate bases and the immense physical toll it would take. The true method may have been a combination of techniques, a secret of engineering and rhythm known only to the island's master movers, a knowledge now lost to time. The mystery of the Moai deepens when we consider the fate of the society that created them. The island's story is often told as a cautionary tale of ecological collapse. The prevailing narrative suggests that a growing population, driven by competitive statue construction among clans, led to the complete deforestation of the island. Without trees, soil eroded, canoes could not be built for fishing, and society fractured into conflict. The statues, symbols of ancestral power and protection, were toppled. This story frames the Moai themselves as the cause of their maker's downfall, but recent archaeological work paints a more complex and resilient picture. Evidence suggests the Rapa Nui people adapted ingeniously to their changing environment, using stone gardens to grow crops and maintaining a society that persisted for generations even after European contact introduced new and devastating challenges. The Moai, then, might not be monuments to hubris but to something far more profound. They likely represented deified ancestors, their backs to the sea to watch over the living communities, their immense size a testament to the mana, or spiritual power, of both the ancestor and the clan that erected them. Their creation was an act of profound cultural and spiritual necessity, a way to connect the living world with the realm of the ancestors. The fallen Moai are not merely evidence of collapse, but of a dramatic cultural transformation, a shift in belief and power. Their silent, solemn faces hold a dual lesson. They speak of the incredible things humans can achieve when united by a shared vision, and they whisper a warning about the delicate balance between that ambition and the world that sustains it. They are not failures but powerful, eternal witnesses to a culture's highest aspirations and its enduring struggle to survive. There is a quiet corner of a museum in Baghdad that holds a secret about power, but not the kind wielded by kings or armies. It is a small, unassuming clay jar about the size of a man's fist, dating from sometime between 250 years before the Common Era and 650 years after. Inside it, archaeologists found a copper cylinder and within that, an iron rod. The jar's opening was sealed with asphalt, a natural tar, which also held the metal pieces in place. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing more than an odd ancient container, perhaps for storing a precious scroll. But in 1936, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm König examined it and proposed a startling idea. If you filled this jar with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, the chemical reaction between the iron rod and the copper cylinder would create a small electric charge. In essence, it would become a primitive battery. This object, now famously called the Baghdad Battery, presents a tantalizing and deeply controversial puzzle. Did the ancient peoples of Mesopotamia truly discover the principles of electricity over 1,000 years before scientists like Luigi Galvani and Alessandro Volta laid the modern foundations in the 18th century? The practical evidence is both compelling and frustrating. Experiments with replicas confirm that the arrangement can produce around 1 volt of electricity, not enough to light a bulb, but enough for a subtle, consistent tingle. So what could such a tiny current have been used for? One prominent theory suggests electroplating, the process of using electricity to coat one metal with a thin layer of another. Artisans of the time were masters of gilding, applying gold leaf to silver objects to create stunning pieces. Could a series of these batteries, connected together, have provided the current needed for a more efficient plating process? It is a fascinating possibility, yet no electroplated artifacts from that period show the distinct signature that such a method would leave behind. Other ideas point to medical or religious applications. Ancient texts from various cultures speak of using electric fish to numb pain, so a conceptual understanding of therapeutic shock is not impossible. Perhaps the gentle current was used in temple rituals, creating a mysterious sensation for initiates or making a metal idol seem to vibrate with divine energy. The simplest explanation, of course, is that it was just a storage jar, and the coincidence of its materials is just that, a coincidence. The asphalt seal kept the scroll inside dry, and the iron rod was merely a protective casing. This is where the mystery truly solidifies. For an invention to be accepted as part of a culture's knowledge, we expect to find more than one example, or at least some written or artistic reference to its use. The Baghdad Battery stands alone. No other identical artifacts have been conclusively found, and no cuneiform tablet describes a recipe for capturing lightning in a jar. This isolation is what keeps the object in the realm of captivating speculation rather than settled history. Its power, therefore, lies not in the volt it might produce, but in the profound question it forces us to ask about the nature of discovery. How many times in human history has a fundamental principle of the world been stumbled upon, used in a limited, practical way, and then forgotten? The Baghdad Battery is a ghost of a possibility, a whisper from the past that suggests the timeline of scientific progress is not a straight, inevitable line, but a story full of dead ends, lost insights, and lonely artifacts waiting in museum cases, holding a charge of mystery that modern science has yet to fully discharge. A museum vault in Istanbul safeguards a fragment of skin that holds an impossible coastline. It is a portion of a world map drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. Crafted on gazelle parchment, it is a beautiful and detailed work, showing the Atlantic Ocean with the coasts of Europe, Africa, and the newly discovered lands of the Americas. But in its southern reaches lies a detail that has sparked debate for over a century. The map appears to show a landmass connected to South America, with a coastline that bears a startling resemblance to the northern shore of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. This is the heart of the enigma. The continent of Antarctica was not officially sighted until 1820, over 300 years after this map was drawn. Even more perplexing, the coastline depicted is not the icy, glacial edge we see today, but a seemingly ice-free topography, showing bays, rivers, and mountain ranges that now lie buried under thousands of feet of ice. Piri Reis himself left notes on the map, explaining that he compiled it from numerous source charts, some of which were contemporary Portuguese and Spanish maps, and others he described as dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. This claim pushes the potential origin of this knowledge into deep antiquity. How could anyone have mapped a continent that has been encased in ice for millions of years? The most straightforward explanation offered by mainstream scholars is that the southern landmass is not Antarctica at all, but a speculative or composite representation. It could be a distorted version of the South American coast, drawn from incomplete reports by early explorers, or it might represent a mythical southern continent, a theoretical land called Terra Australis that cartographers had hypothesized existed to balance the northern landmasses since the time of the ancient Greeks. The apparent accuracy, they argue, is a coincidence, an accident of drawing that seems to match modern knowledge only when viewed with the benefit of hindsight. Yet, for those who study the map closely, the coincidences feel too precise. The proponents of the map's authenticity point to modern seismic surveys of the Antarctic bedrock, which have mapped the continent's true geological coastline beneath the ice cap. The shape of the land under the glacier, they note, aligns remarkably well with the bays and peninsulas on the Piri Reis fragment. If this is not Antarctica, what else could it so closely resemble? This leads to the more radical theory, one that challenges our entire narrative of human history. Could the map be evidence of a lost, advanced prehistoric civilization with seafaring capabilities, sophisticated enough to chart the globe? Perhaps a culture from the last interglacial period, over 100,000 years ago, when Antarctica's coasts may have been temporarily ice-free, left behind cartographic knowledge that survived in fragments, eventually finding its way into the library of an Ottoman admiral. The Piri Reis map does not provide answers, only profound questions. It sits at the crossroads of history and mystery, a tantalizing piece of evidence that refuses to fit neatly into our accepted timeline. It forces us to wonder about the great libraries of antiquity that were lost, the maps that burned, and the voyages whose records have turned to dust. Whether it is a cartographic miracle or a magnificent misunderstanding, the map serves as a permanent reminder that our planet's history and humanity's journey across it may be far older and more mysterious than any textbook has yet dared to write. The Piri Reis map hints at lost voyages, but in the hills of Zhejiang, China, an entire lost world lies buried not under ice but under the earth itself. In 1992, a local farmer decided to pump water out of a small, mysterious pond in his village, a pool locals had long believed was bottomless. After 17 days of continuous pumping, the water finally receded to reveal not a muddy hole, but the entrance to an immense hand-carved cavern. This was the first of what we now call the Longyou Caves, a staggering underground complex of at least 24 separate grottos, each one a monumental hall carved from solid sandstone. To step inside is to enter a space of overwhelming scale and eerie silence. The largest of these caverns covers over 10,000 square meters, with ceilings soaring as high as a 10-story building, supported by massive, evenly spaced pillars of rock left in place by the builders. Every surface, from the vast walls to the soaring ceilings, is covered in a mesmerizing, uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks, a deliberate decorative design that runs in consistent bands across thousands upon thousands of square feet. The precision is breathtaking. The walls meet at crisp, perfect 60-degree angles, the pillars are symmetrically arranged, and the surfaces are smoothed with a masterful consistency. This is not a natural cave system. It is clearly the product of a colossal, organized, and highly skilled human effort, estimated to have been undertaken over 2,000 years ago during the Western Han Dynasty. Yet here lies the core of the mystery that swallows all sound. Despite their staggering scale and obvious sophistication, the Longyou Caves are absent from any historical record. Not a single scroll, stone inscription, or local chronicle from the time so much as whispers of their construction. The local folklore, rich with tales of gods and heroes, is utterly silent about the army of laborers and engineers who must have toiled here for generations. Even more baffling is the complete absence of the physical evidence we would expect from such a project. Archaeologists have found no tools left behind, no pottery shards, no charcoal from work lamps, and perhaps most puzzling of all, no piles of excavated rubble. Where did the estimated 1 million cubic meters of removed sandstone go? This profound silence amplifies every question about their purpose. Were they secret imperial retreats or storehouses, carved in remote safety? The consistent, almost artistic chiseling suggests something more than a utilitarian quarry, but no artifacts or inscriptions point to habitation. Could they have been elaborate tombs for nobility, though no resting places or offerings have ever been found? Some researchers look at the grand, echoing spaces and see ritual halls, designed for ceremonies whose nature and gods are now forgotten. The scale of the endeavor speaks of a command of resources only a powerful, centralized authority could muster, yet that authority left no signature. The Longyou Caves are a paradox of overwhelming presence and absolute absence. They are a physical testament to a will and a skill of immense magnitude, yet they exist outside of history, a secret kept not by people but by time itself. They force us to confront a humbling possibility that a project of such breathtaking ambition could be undertaken, completed, and then simply forgotten, leaving behind only these silent, magnificent halls as a question mark carved into the very bones of the earth. The Longyou Caves are a monument to silence, but high in the Andes, another ancient site speaks through stone in a language of impossible precision. Above the former Inca capital of Cusco, Peru, the fortress of Sacsayhuamán presents a wall that defies both reason and the passage of time. These are not simple stacked blocks. They are a colossal three-dimensional puzzle composed of massive, irregularly shaped limestone boulders, some weighing well over 100 tons. Each stone is a unique polygon with anywhere from 6 to a dozen interlocking sides, fitted perfectly against its neighbors. The joints between them are so tight, so seamless, that for centuries guides have demonstrated that not even the blade of a razor can be inserted into the cracks. This is not an exaggeration for tourists. It is a testament to a masonry technique of such sophistication that it has never been replicated. Built in the 15th century under the Inca Pachacuti, the site served as both a ceremonial center and a formidable defensive complex. Yet its true mystery lies not in its purpose, which historians understand, but in its method of construction, which they cannot. How did a culture without iron tools, without the wheel, and without mortar achieve this? The process began miles away at the quarries. The Incas likely used harder stones as hammers to pound along natural fracture lines, patiently coaxing the massive blocks free. Transporting these titans across rugged mountain terrain remains one of the great logistical puzzles. The prevailing theory involves a combination of manpower, leverage, and earthen ramps. Thousands of laborers would have used ropes and wooden rollers to inch each stone forward, a task of monumental coordination and effort, but the final act is the most baffling. How did they achieve that perfect fit? The stones were not shaped into standard rectangles. Instead, each irregular boulder was meticulously dressed on site, its many faces carved to match the negative space of the stones already in place. This required an almost supernatural foresight, a three-dimensional visualization skill that allowed the masons to see the final form in the raw rock. Local legend offers a poetic explanation that the Incas possessed a knowledge now lost, a plant extract that could temporarily soften the stone, allowing them to mold it like clay before it hardened again. While this idea captures the imagination, modern science has yet to verify any such substance. The more likely truth is a mastery of simple, brilliant technique. They may have used the stones themselves as tools, grinding the surfaces together with sand and water until the friction created a perfect, friction-locked seam. This method, while incredibly labor-intensive, would account for the incredible precision and the lack of tool marks we might expect from metal chisels. The result is more than just a sturdy wall. It is a masterpiece of seismic engineering. The irregular, interlocking design acts like a shock absorber. During the powerful earthquakes that frequently shake the Andes, a rigid, straight wall would crack and crumble. But these polygonal walls shift and settle as a unified, flexible mass, dancing with the tremors without collapsing. This reveals a profound understanding of their environment, an architecture learned through observation and encoded in stone. The Walls of Sacsayhuamán stand as a silent curriculum from a lost school of engineering. They represent a peak of knowledge achieved not through complex machinery, but through an intimate, generational dialogue with material and landscape. The masons did not force the stone to obey, they listened to it, and in doing so, created a bond so strong that 500 years of earthquakes have been unable to break it. The seamless stonework of Sacsayhuamán represents a pinnacle of organized society. But what if the very foundations of that organization are not what we think? On a windswept hilltop in southeastern Turkey, a discovery is quietly dismantling the cornerstone of human history. This is Göbekli Tepe, a complex of monumental stone circles built over 11,000 years ago, a time when textbooks tell us humans were simple nomadic hunter-gatherers concerned only with survival. The scale here is staggering. Enormous T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were quarried, moved, and erected in precise circular formations. Each pillar is a work of art, carved with breathtakingly detailed reliefs of animals, scorpions, foxes, lions, vultures, and boars, their forms flowing across the stone with a sophistication that feels utterly out of place in the so-called Stone Age. This site is not just old, it is profoundly ancient, predating Stonehenge by a staggering 6,000 years and the Great Pyramids by a full 7 millennia. Its existence forces a radical rewrite of our story. The traditional narrative of civilization is a logical progression. First, humans discovered agriculture, which produced surplus food, which allowed for permanent settlements, specialization of labor, and finally, the spare time and resources to build temples and pursue complex religion. Göbekli Tepe turns this sequence completely on its head. Here we have the temple first. There is no evidence of permanent housing, no signs of domesticated crops or animals at the site's inception. This was a purely ritual space, built by people who likely still lived in mobile bands, foraging for their food. The implication is seismic. It suggests that the driving force behind the leap into complex society was not economics but spirituality. The need to gather, to worship, to create a shared sacred space may have been the original spark that brought large groups together and demanded the organization, planning, and cooperative labor that would later become the bedrock of cities. Who were the visionaries who commanded this effort? What belief system was so powerful, so compelling, that it could motivate hundreds of people to dedicate generations to carving and moving mountains of stone? The animal carvings offer cryptic clues. They are not peaceful pastoral scenes, but depictions of powerful, often dangerous creatures. Some researchers see a prehistoric cosmology, where each animal represented a clan or a spiritual force, and the pillars themselves may be stylized human forms, perhaps ancestors or gods, watching over the rituals performed within the circles. The ultimate act at Göbekli Tepe is as mysterious as its creation. Around 8,000 years before the Common Era, the entire complex was deliberately and carefully buried. Not destroyed in conflict, not abandoned to decay, but filled in with thousands of tons of soil and stone, preserving it perfectly for modern archaeologists to find. This was not an act of vandalism, but one of profound reverence or protection. Were they sealing away a sacred site whose time had passed, interring the old gods to make way for a new world? The silent, buried pillars hold their secrets close. Göbekli Tepe does not just add an earlier chapter to our history book, it suggests the book itself is structured wrong. It presents a world where the human impulse to seek meaning, to build monuments to the unseen, may have been the very engine that set us on the path to everything that followed. It is a humbling reminder that the roots of civilization are not found in granaries, but in the human heart's deep, ancient need to connect with something greater than itself. The profound need to build sacred spaces connects us across millennia, but the lengths to which ancient peoples would go for the perfect stones is a mystery etched into the ground of southern England. While the towering Sarsen stones of Stonehenge capture the eye, the true heart of its mystery lies in the smaller, inner circle of bluestones. These dolerite and rhyolite pillars, each weighing up to 4 tons, were not local. Their geological fingerprint points unequivocally to the Preseli Hills in West Wales, a staggering distance of over 150 miles from the Salisbury Plain. In the Neolithic period, around 5,000 years ago, moving 80 of these stones such a vast distance was an undertaking of almost incomprehensible difficulty. This was a world without the wheel, without metal tools, and without domesticated animals strong enough for heavy hauling. The landscape was one of dense forests, treacherous marshes, and powerful rivers. Yet the builders of Stonehenge chose these specific stones, and they brought them all the way home. How did they achieve this? One long-standing theory suggests nature provided a head start. During the last ice age, glaciers may have carried some bluestone boulders eastward, depositing them closer to Salisbury Plain. If true, the builders would have only needed to move them the last 20 or 30 miles, a formidable task but a more manageable one. However, recent geological studies have cast doubt on this glacial transport, finding no evidence of such rocks in the areas between Preseli and Stonehenge. This strengthens the case for a purely human endeavor, a deliberate, orchestrated journey of epic proportions. The likely method involved a combination of ingenuity and brute force. The stones would have been first levered onto wooden sledges, perhaps using a system of ropes and wooden rollers made from tree trunks. Teams of hundreds would then have pulled these sledges across land, following natural ridges to avoid the lowest, softest ground. For the major water crossings, like the Bristol Channel or the River Avon, the stones may have been loaded onto rafts or lashed between canoes, a perilous operation requiring expert knowledge of currents and tides. The entire process, from quarry to final placement, would have taken generations, a multi-century project that required a sustained cultural will spanning lifetimes. This monumental effort forces the deeper question, why? Why go through all of this for these particular stones? Practicality was clearly not the concern. The local Sarsen stones were larger and readily available. The answer seems to lie in the stones themselves. The Preseli Hills were a revered landscape in the Neolithic, a place considered spiritually potent. Geological research has shown that some of the bluestones produce a distinctive ringing sound when struck, a sonic property that could have been seen as magical or oracular. Furthermore, the springs in the Preseli area were likely considered sacred healing sites, and the stones from that region may have been believed to carry those curative properties with them. Transporting the bluestones, then, was not just moving rock. It was a ritual act of bringing a sacred, living power from a holy land to a new ceremonial center. It was an act of pilgrimage, with each mile of the journey adding to the stone's spiritual value. The journey of the bluestones transforms Stonehenge from a simple astronomical calendar into a profound statement of belief. It tells us that for its builders, the very substance of their temple mattered as much as its alignment with the sun. The site was a confluence of earthly power and celestial order, built with stones that were chosen not for convenience but for their essence. Their incredible voyage across mountains and rivers stands as a testament to a cultural imperative we can still feel, a drive to connect with the land in the most literal and demanding way possible, weaving distant geographies into a single, sacred circle of meaning. While Stonehenge's stones crossed a landscape, another ancient text describes a treasure that seems to have vanished into it. Among the famed Dead Sea Scrolls, a library of 2,000-year-old religious manuscripts discovered in caves near Qumran, one document is a complete anomaly. It is not written on fragile parchment or papyrus, but on thin sheets of copper meticulously engraved with text. This is the Copper Scroll, and it contains no psalms, prophecies, or sacred laws. Instead, it reads like an inventory from a royal vault, listing 64 locations where staggering quantities of treasure are supposedly hidden. The amounts are almost mythical, describing tons of gold and silver, along with precious vessels and priestly vestments. The text is brutally practical, giving terse, coded directions like, "In the salt pit that is under the steps, 41 talents of silver," or "In the cavity of the old house of tribute, in the platform of the chain, 65 bars of gold." This isn't a spiritual guide, it is a treasure map etched in metal for permanence. Scholars believe it dates to the 1st century, a time of great upheaval when Roman forces marched on Jerusalem, leading to the destruction of the Second Temple in the year 70. This timing is the key to the most compelling theory. The treasure listed is so vast and includes items so specific to temple rituals that many researchers believe the scroll records the emergency hiding of the temple's sacred wealth, a desperate attempt by priests or community leaders to protect it from Roman looting. The copper was chosen precisely because it would not decay like parchment, ensuring the memory of the hiding places would survive the conflict. Yet, this is where the mystery solidifies into frustration. If this map is real, why has none of this colossal treasure ever been found? Expeditions have scoured the Judean desert for decades, armed with the scroll's clues, and have come back empty-handed. The problem lies in the language of the landscape itself. The directions rely on landmarks that would have been obvious 2 millennia ago: a specific olive tree, a named dam, a particular valley's fork. These natural signposts have vanished, erased by time, climate, and human development. What was once the old riverbed might now be a featureless stretch of desert, and the ruin at the Green Mound could be any of 100 small tells. This transforms the Copper Scroll from a simple map into a profound linguistic and archaeological puzzle. It is a set of precise instructions for a world that no longer exists. Some scholars argue the treasure was found and quietly removed long ago, perhaps by the Romans themselves after extracting the information from captives. Others propose the amounts are symbolic or exaggerated, representing a community's tithes or spiritual wealth rather than physical bullion. A more radical theory suggests the treasure was never hidden at all, and the scroll is a work of fiction or an allegorical text, its metal medium lending gravity to a metaphorical message we no longer understand. But the very choice of costly, durable copper argues against a mere fantasy. It represents significant effort for a document meant to last. The enduring allure of the copper scroll is this perfect tension between the concrete and the elusive. It provides a tangible, physical artifact that points to unimaginable wealth, yet that wealth remains forever just out of reach, hidden behind a veil of lost geography. It is a reminder that history often leaves us with the inventory but loses the key to the warehouse, a tantalizing whisper of opulence swallowed by the silent, shifting sands. The silent stones of the copper scroll point to a treasure of belief, but in northwestern France, an entire landscape has been transformed into a monument of pure geometry. The Carnac Alignments are not a circle or a single towering structure, but a vast, orderly army of stone. Spread across the countryside near the town of Carnac in Brittany, thousands of prehistoric standing stones, known as menhirs, stand in eerie, parallel rows that stretch for kilometers. To walk among them is to feel a profound sense of dislocation, as if you have stepped into a grid drawn by giants. These stones were erected over 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period, and the sheer scale of the site is almost incomprehensible. There are over 3,000 stones still standing today, organized into three major groups: Mainek, Kermario, and Kaleskan, each consisting of 10 to 13 perfectly straight lines. The individual menhirs vary in size, from modest boulders to towering pillars over 4 meters tall and weighing several tons. Their alignment is too deliberate, too meticulously arranged to be the work of chance or natural forces. This precision over such a vast area is the core of the enduring puzzle. What conceivable purpose could have driven a society to invest generations of labor into creating this colossal stone forest? One of the most compelling theories is astronomical. The rows run roughly east to west, and some researchers suggest they functioned as a gigantic observatory or calendar. Certain stones or gaps in the lines may have been sighting markers, aligning with the rising or setting sun at the solstices or equinoxes, turning the entire landscape into a machine for tracking time and seasons. This would have been vital for an agricultural society, dictating the rhythms of planting and harvest. Another, more speculative idea proposes the stones acted as a seismic detector. The region sits on geological fault lines, and the theory suggests the carefully balanced menhirs would vibrate or produce audible sounds in response to subtle tremors deep within the earth, serving as an early warning system for earthquakes. Yet another interpretation looks to symbolism and spirituality. The orderly ranks could represent a gathering of deities, ancestors, or a community's clan totems, a permanent stone assembly for rituals we can no longer envision. Perhaps they mark the boundary of a sacred territory, a liminal space separating the mundane world from a realm of spiritual power, with the act of walking the lines being a form of pilgrimage or initiation. The true answer may be a combination of these ideas, a multifaceted purpose that blended practical science with deep religious belief. What is undeniable is the level of social organization this enterprise required. Quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of heavy stones across miles of terrain required not just manpower, but a shared vision that could coordinate labor across generations. It speaks of a society with leaders or priests capable of planning on a monumental scale, and a population united by a common faith or cultural imperative. This is not the work of scattered, isolated villages, but of a cohesive culture with a complex world view they felt compelled to etch permanently into the earth itself. Today, the alignments stand in silent, regimented rows, their original meaning dissolved by millennia of wind and rain. They resist our modern need for a single, simple explanation. They are a lesson in humility, reminding us that the deepest drives of a civilization, To understand the cosmos, to appease the gods, to define their place in the world, can manifest in forms so vast and enigmatic that, long after the language and the gods have faded, the stones remain, asking their silent, orderly questions. These silent, orderly rows of Carnac speak of a culture's unified vision, but across the world, another ancient civilization speaks only in symbols we cannot understand. In the ruins of the great cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, part of the Indus Valley civilization that flourished around 2,500 years before the Common Era, archaeologists have unearthed thousands of small, intricately carved objects. Most are square seals made of steatite, a soft stone that was then fired to become hard. They depict a stunning menagerie of animals: unicorns, bulls, elephants, and tigers. But above each image runs a short line of mysterious, elegant symbols. These symbols also appear on pottery, copper tablets, and tools, amounting to over 400 distinct signs, from simple geometric shapes to stylized depictions of fish, jars, and human figures. This is the Indus Valley Script, and it represents one of the most profound and frustrating linguistic puzzles on Earth. Since its discovery in the 1870s, it has resisted every single attempt at decipherment, leaving one of humanity's first great urban societies utterly voiceless. The core of the mystery is a fundamental question: is this even a true writing system? Some scholars argue the inscriptions are too short, with most containing only 4 or 5 symbols, to encode a complex language. They suggest it might be a system of non-linguistic symbols representing clan marks, religious icons, or tokens for economic transactions, more akin to heraldry or accountancy than literature. Yet the structure of the script suggests something more. The symbols show clear patterns, with certain signs consistently appearing at the beginning of sequences and others at the end, much like grammatical rules in a written language. Statistical analysis reveals it behaves like a logo-syllabic system, similar to early Sumerian cuneiform, where signs represent both whole words and syllables. This tantalizing evidence points to a full-fledged language, but without a key, it remains a locked vault of information. The primary obstacle is the absence of a Rosetta Stone. No bilingual inscription has ever been found that pairs the Indus script with a known language. Furthermore, the underlying language itself is unknown and likely extinct, with no clear descendant to provide clues. The inscriptions are also frustratingly brief, offering no lengthy narratives or royal decrees that could provide context. Imagine trying to crack a complex code when you only have fragments of grocery lists. That is the scale of the challenge linguists face. Unlocking this script would be a transformative moment in history. It would finally allow the people of the Indus Valley to tell their own story. We could learn about their political structure. Were they ruled by kings or priests, or was theirs a more collective society? We could understand their religious beliefs, giving meaning to the many terracotta figurines and the famous priest-king statue. Most poignantly, we could hear about daily life, their trade, their laws, their personal hopes and struggles. Instead, we are left with only the silent, physical remains of their astonishingly advanced cities, with their grid-like streets, sophisticated drainage systems, and standardized weights, a society of immense sophistication that chose to inscribe its identity on these small, beautiful seals. For now, the civilization remains a whisper in the archaeological record, its stories perfectly preserved in elegant, unreadable symbols, a reminder that the greatest barrier to understanding the past is sometimes not the loss of artifacts, but the loss of the voice that could explain them. While the Indus script is a language we cannot hear, a modern monument in rural Georgia spoke in 8 languages, yet its message only deepened the mystery. In 1980, on a quiet hilltop in Elbert County, a set of imposing granite slabs appeared, commissioned by a man who gave only the name R.C. Christian. He claimed it represented a small group of loyal Americans, but their true identities were never uncovered. The Georgia Guidestones, as they came to be known, were not ancient, but they were built with an archaeologist's eye for the future. The four main monoliths, each over 16 feet tall, supported a capstone and were precisely aligned to track the sun's solstices and equinoxes, and a small hole in one stone was drilled to always point toward the North Star. Their purpose was explicitly didactic. Carved into the granite in 8 modern languages were 10 guidelines or principles for a future society. These instructions called for maintaining humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guiding reproduction wisely, unifying humanity with a new living language, and ruling passion and faith with tempered reason. The tone was calm, rational, and vaguely utopian, yet profoundly unsettling in its cold specificity, particularly regarding population. This ambiguity birthed endless speculation. Were the stones a benevolent blueprint from a group of intellectuals hoping to steer civilization away from collapse? Or were they a sinister manifesto, advocating for drastic control over human life? The anonymous sponsorship fueled the intrigue, transforming R.C. Christian from a man into a symbol, a blank screen onto which people projected fears of secret societies, apocalyptic cults, or elite globalist agendas. The stone stood for 4 decades, a modern megalith that refused to explain itself, becoming a pilgrimage site for conspiracy theorists, New Age seekers, and the simply curious. Then, in 2022, unknown individuals vandalized the stones with explosives, and the damaged structure was later fully demolished by the county, citing safety concerns. This act of destruction completed their transformation from monument into full-fledged archaeological mystery of the modern age. Their physical life was brief, but their enigmatic existence asks a timeless question. What does it mean to send a message into the future? The builders of Stonehenge or the Nazca Lines did so through form and alignment, their meanings embedded in culture and symbol. The creators of the Georgia Guidestones used plain words, yet their anonymity and the starkness of their prescriptions made the message more cryptic, not less. They became a puzzle about our own time, a reflection of 20th century anxieties about overpopulation and environmental limits, cast in stone by a ghost. Their story is a reminder that mystery is not a property of age alone, but of intention, and that sometimes the most baffling artifacts are those left behind by people who walked among us, but chose to remain forever unseen. Beneath the clear, blue waters off Japan's southernmost island lies a landscape that should not exist. The Yonaguni Monument is a series of massive, terraced sandstone formations rising from the seafloor, a haunting underwater tableau discovered by a diver in 1986. Its features are startlingly geometric, with sharp 90-degree angles, perfectly flat platforms, and what appear to be wide, symmetrical steps ascending like a submerged stadium. The largest structure is over 160 feet long and 80 feet tall, a monolithic presence in the silent, aquatic world. From the moment it was found, it sparked an immediate and fierce debate that cuts to the very core of archaeological interpretation. Is this a masterpiece of nature or a monument from a lost human world? Those who argue for human artistry point to details that feel undeniably intentional. There are twin pillars of stone that look like they were placed to support a ceiling, a straight, narrow channel that resembles a ceremonial pathway, and a particularly compelling feature often called the face, a rock formation with what appears to be 2 carved eyes and a mouth. The sheer scale and regularity of the terraces suggest a design, a purpose that goes beyond random erosion. If human hands are responsible, the implications are staggering. The monument would have been constructed on dry land, meaning it dates to a time when sea levels were dramatically lower, over 10,000 years ago during the last glacial period. This would place its creation in a prehistoric era long before the accepted timeline for complex monumental architecture in the region, hinting at a forgotten chapter of human history, a culture advanced enough to shape stone on a grand scale, only to be swallowed by the rising seas. Geologists, however, offer a powerful counter-narrative. They point to the area's unique conditions. The sandstone here is prone to fracturing along straight lines due to tectonic stresses, a natural process that can create remarkably clean, right-angled cracks. The powerful currents that sweep through these straits constantly erode the softer rock, potentially carving out those stepped platforms and terraces over millennia. The famous face could simply be a trick of the light and pareidolia, our brain's instinct to see familiar patterns where none exist. Many of the features cited as proof of tool marks, they argue, are identical to those found in known natural sandstone formations along nearby coasts. This mystery lies in the profoundly ambiguous space between what nature can produce through immense, patient force and what human intention can impose upon the world. Without any associated artifacts like tools, pottery, or carvings with recognizable symbols, the site offers no clear cultural signature. It challenges archaeologists to interpret form without context, to decide where the line lies between a breathtaking coincidence of geology and the silent, drowned legacy of a people we have never known. The Yonaguni Monument is ultimately a mirror. What we see in its shadowy steps and sharp angles reflects our own desire to find meaning in the ancient world, and the humbling reality that nature itself is the most profound and mysterious artist of all. The silent, submerged geometry of Yonaguni leaves us wondering what other landscapes hide ancient secrets, but on the dry highlands of Laos, the evidence is stark and impossible to ignore. The Xingquang Plateau is home to one of the world's most haunting and inexplicable sites, the Plain of Jars. Here, scattered across rolling grasslands and nestled beneath forest canopies, lie thousands of massive stone vessels. Carved from sandstone and granite, these jars are monumental, some standing over 3 meters tall and weighing several tons. They are not arranged in tidy rows but gathered in mysterious clusters, some sites containing just a few, others holding hundreds of these silent, hollow sentinels. Their craftsmanship is both rugged and deliberate, with many featuring a distinct lip around the rim, as if designed to hold a lid. Nearby, archaeologists have found stone discs that may have served as those very covers, along with beads, ceramic fragments, and other small artifacts, clues that these sites were places of significant activity. The jars date to the Iron Age, from roughly 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, a period of emerging cultural complexity in Southeast Asia. Yet the civilization that created them left no written records, and their name has been lost to the centuries. The central, chilling question hangs in the air: what were these giant containers for? The most persistent theory, supported by local legends and the nature of the scattered artifacts, points to ceremonial practices for the departed. Researchers suggest the jars may have been used in burial rituals, perhaps as vessels for individuals during a period of decomposition, with the remains later being collected for a final resting place elsewhere. Alternatively, they could have held funeral goods or offerings for the journey beyond. This interpretation would make the plain a vast, open-air memorial landscape, a sacred space where communities engaged with the cycle of life in a profound and physical way. However, a frustrating gap remains in the evidence. No human remains have been conclusively linked directly to the jars themselves, leaving the funeral theory compelling but unproven. This absence only deepens the practical mysteries. How did these Iron Age people quarry such enormous blocks of stone? How did they transport them, sometimes over considerable distances, without wheels or draft animals? And with what tools did they achieve the hollowing out of solid rock, a process requiring immense patience and skill? The jars stand as a testament to a society with remarkable stone-working traditions and a powerful shared purpose, but the specifics of their methods are silenced by time. Today, the quest for answers is tragically hindered by a modern legacy of conflict. The plateau was heavily bombed during the mid-20th century, leaving the landscape littered with unexploded ordnance. This ongoing danger severely limits archaeological exploration, making each careful survey a painstaking and perilous endeavor. The jars, therefore, exist in a double layer of mystery, shrouded by ancient intention and a modern veil of inaccessibility. Walking among them is to feel a profound solitude, a sense of standing in a field of unanswered questions. They are not arranged to impress like a temple, but to serve a function we can only guess at, their open mouths forever waiting to tell a story whose language we have forgotten. They remind us that some of history's most poignant chapters are written not in words, but in stone, and that understanding them requires not just intellectual curiosity, but the patience and peace to listen. Deep within the crypts of an Egyptian temple, a stone relief glows with controversy. On a wall in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a series of intricate carvings shows a strange and compelling scene. A large, bulbous object, elongated like a slender vase, is held aloft by a pillar. Inside this object, a serpent stretches along its length. This snake-like form is connected by what appears to be a cable to a box, upon which a baboon-like deity sits, while a figure stands nearby, gripping what could be interpreted as knife switches. To a modern eye, the resemblance is uncanny. It looks for all the world like a depiction of an electric light bulb, complete with a glowing filament and a power source. This is the so-called Dendera Light, a single image that has ignited one of alternative history's most persistent flames. The idea that ancient Egyptians might have harnessed electricity to illuminate their dark tombs and temples. Mainstream Egyptology offers a very different, deeply symbolic reading, grounded in the rich tapestry of Egyptian mythology. Scholars identify the bulbous object not as a technological device, but as a lotus flower, a potent symbol of creation and rebirth. The serpent inside is the god Harsomptus, emerging from the lotus, representing the moment of divine manifestation and the rising sun. The entire tableau is a cosmological scene, illustrating the Egyptian creation myth where the sun god is born from a primordial lotus that emerged from the waters of chaos. The supporting figures are deities involved in this sacred drama, and the cable is likely a ritual staff or the stem of the plant itself. The interpretation is consistent with thousands of other temple reliefs that use symbolic, not literal, language to describe the workings of the universe. The enduring mystery of the Dendera Light, therefore, is not a puzzle of ancient engineering, but a fascinating case study in human perception. It is a masterclass in pareidolia, our brain's innate tendency to find familiar patterns in ambiguous stimuli, like seeing faces in clouds or animals in rock formations. We are a technological society surrounded by artificial light. When we look at the Dendera carving, our modern minds instinctively search for the closest match in our own experience, and we find the light bulb. The mystery lies in the compelling nature of this projection. The image seems to fit our world so neatly that it creates a powerful cognitive dissonance, a tug of war between what experts tell us it represents and what our own eyes insist they see. This tension speaks to a deeper longing in how we view the past. The idea of a lost, advanced technology is profoundly appealing. It suggests a hidden thread of genius, a secret history more dramatic than the slow, steady accumulation of knowledge we learn in school. It transforms the awe-inspiring achievements of the ancients from products of immense cultural coordination and patient skill into artifacts of a more familiar kind of brilliance, one that mirrors our own. The Dendera Light becomes a Rorschach test for our relationship with history. Do we see the past on its own terms, a foreign country with different customs and symbols, or do we unconsciously remake it in our own image, searching for reflections of ourselves in the polished stone? The relief at Dendera does not illuminate dark tombs, but it brilliantly lights up the ways we struggle to understand a world that operated by a logic beautifully and fundamentally not our own. The serene halls of the Minoan palaces fell silent in a historical blink. On the island of Crete, a civilization that had flourished for centuries, renowned for its sprawling, labyrinthine palace complexes, vibrant frescoes of dolphins and bull leapers, and a powerful maritime trade network, faced a sudden and dramatic end around 1450 years before the Common Era. The Minoans were the first advanced society in Europe, a people of remarkable artistry and apparent peace, with no evidence of fortifications around their great centers like Knossos. Their sudden disappearance from the historical stage is one of archaeology's most enduring cold cases, a multi-layered mystery where natural disaster, human conflict, and slow decline are all prime suspects. The most spectacular theory points to a cataclysm from the sea. Just 70 miles north of Crete lay the volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini. Sometime in the mid-2nd millennium, Thera erupted with a force thought to be many times greater than the famous Krakatoa event. This was not just an eruption, it was a geological detonation that obliterated the island's center, leaving the iconic caldera we see today. The immediate effects would have been apocalyptic for the Minoans. Seismic shocks would have rattled Crete, collapsing buildings. Then, tsunamis, waves perhaps hundreds of feet high, would have scoured the northern coast of Crete, devastating the vital harbor towns and fleet that were the lifeblood of Minoan trade and power. Volcanic ash would have blanketed the island, smothering farmland and causing widespread crop failure for years. This single natural disaster theory is compelling in its sheer destructive scale, a clear culprit capable of crippling a civilization in days. Yet the timeline is not perfectly clear. Some evidence suggests the Thera eruption may have occurred a generation or two before the final collapse of the palace system, meaning the Minoans might have survived the initial blow, only to be fatally weakened. This opens the door to another suspect, invasion from the mainland. In the wake of the disaster, the warlike Mycenaeans from Greece, who had long been influenced by Minoan culture, may have seen a crippled rival. Archaeological evidence shows Mycenaean weaponry and artifacts appearing in Crete around this time, and the Linear B script used later at Knossos is an early form of Greek, not the native Minoan language. This suggests a takeover, but was it a violent conquest of a weakened people, or a more gradual assimilation by migrants filling a vacuum? The truth likely lies in a grim combination. The Thera eruption may not have delivered a single killing blow, but a series of debilitating body shots. It would have shattered the economy by destroying ports and ships. It would have caused famine by ruining agriculture. This environmental and economic stress would have led to inevitable social unrest, breaking down the centralized authority of the priest-kings in the palaces. In this state of vulnerability, the organized Mycenaean warriors would have found not a formidable naval power, but a fractured society ripe for domination or assimilation. The final poignant layer of the mystery is the voice we cannot hear. The Minoans wrote in a script we call Linear A, found on clay tablets that mostly record economic transactions. Unlike its descendant Linear B, which we can read, Linear remains utterly undeciphered. Their own accounts of the disaster, their prayers, their final administrative records, are locked in this elegant, unbreakable code. Their disappearance was so complete that they faded into myth, remembered by later Greeks only as the realm of King Minos and the labyrinth of the Minotaur. Their story is a powerful reminder that sophistication is no shield against the converging forces of a changing world, and that the end of a civilization is rarely a single event, but a tragic symphony of earth, water, and human ambition, playing a finale we can only reconstruct from the silent ruins. The serene ruins of Crete speak of a civilization lost to time, but the deep seafloor holds mysteries that feel startlingly close to our own. In 2011, a team of Swedish ocean explorers were using sonar to scan for historic shipwrecks in the Baltic Sea. What appeared on their screens was not the broken hull of a vessel, but something far more perplexing. Resting on the seabed, nearly 300 feet below the surface, was a nearly perfect circular object roughly 60 meters in diameter, about the length of an Olympic swimming pool. Its shape alone was arresting, but the details sent imagination soaring. The sonar imagery showed what looked like long, straight runways extending from its base, and on its top, a series of raised, blocky formations that some interpreted as a staircase. The discovery, immediately dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, ignited a firestorm of speculation that continues to this day. The most immediate theories reached for historical explanations. Could this be a secret World War II anti-submarine device, a forgotten piece of naval hardware now encrusted and distorted? Perhaps it was a gun turret that had fallen from a battleship, resting eerily upright on the seafloor. Yet, the object's immense size and peculiar geometry made these practical answers feel insufficient for many. This vacuum of a clear, mundane explanation was quickly filled by more extraordinary ideas. The most popular and sensational suggested it was a crashed extraterrestrial craft, a flying saucer preserved in the cold, dark depths. Others wondered if it could be a sunken megalithic structure, a Stonehenge of the sea, built by a prehistoric culture when sea levels were lower, a theory that would rewrite the human history of Northern Europe. The explorers themselves added another layer of intrigue with anecdotal reports. They claimed that when their vessel passed directly over the object, their satellite phones and some electronic equipment would inexplicably malfunction, only to resume working once they had moved away. This detail, though never scientifically verified, became a cornerstone of the mystery, suggesting the anomaly possessed some unknown electromagnetic property. The scientific community, however, largely offers a far more terrestrial explanation. Professional geologists who have examined the data point to a common, if fascinating, natural process. They propose the anomaly is a glacial deposit, a large nodule of moraine stone left behind by the retreating ice sheets that once covered the region thousands of years ago. The straight lines could be the result of glacial scoring, where rocks dragged beneath the ice carved grooves into the main formation. The staircase-like features might simply be parallel beds of sedimentary rock that have eroded at different rates, a common geological site on land that appears bizarre and artificial when found in the deep sea. The malfunctions could be coincidental or caused by the large mass of metal-rich rock interfering with signals. The Baltic Sea Anomaly, therefore, stands as a perfect modern archaeological mystery. It was discovered not by a shovel in the dirt but by sound waves bouncing off the seabed. Its story is woven from equal parts hard data and human psychology. It exemplifies how our advanced tools for exploration can unveil new puzzles faster than we can solve them, presenting us with raw shapes that our minds, hungry for pattern and meaning, rush to interpret. It lives in the tantalizing space between a known natural phenomenon and the enduring hope that the world still holds profound, undiscovered secrets. The anomaly is a Rorschach test in the dark, a reminder that sometimes the most compelling mysteries are not about what we find, but about what we desperately wish to find staring back at us from the abyss. A book of such immense size and weight that it is said to have required 2 people just to lift it sits in a vault at the National Library of Sweden. This is the Codex Gigas, the giant book, a manuscript so monumental it earned a more sinister nickname, the Devil's Bible. Created in the early 13th century within the walls of a Benedictine monastery in Bohemia, its physical presence is staggering. Its vellum pages, made from the skins of an estimated 160 donkeys, measure nearly 3 feet in height and 20 inches in width, bound in wooden covers. To open it is to stand before a library contained within a single volume. It holds the complete Latin Vulgate Bible, but that is only the beginning. Following the sacred texts are historical chronicles, medical works by Hippocrates and Galen, a guide to penance, and even a calendar for tracking saints' days. This compilation represents a universe of medieval knowledge, sacred and secular, bound together under one massive cover, yet one image dominates its legacy. On page 290, a full-page illustration depicts the devil himself. He is a haunting, lonely figure, crouched in a void of empty parchment, with clawed hands and feet, a green face, and two red tongues. This striking portrait, placed directly opposite a magnificent rendering of the heavenly city, creates a powerful, intentional tension between the divine and the diabolical. How did such a contradictory masterpiece come to be? The enduring legend, recorded centuries later, claims it was the work of a single condemned monk. To avoid a severe punishment, he promised to create a book containing all human knowledge in a single night. As midnight approached and the task proved impossible, he prayed not to God but to the fallen angel Lucifer, offering his soul in exchange for completion. The devil finished the book, and in gratitude the monk added the infamous portrait. This chilling tale speaks less to historical fact and more to the sheer awe the book inspired. Its uniformity of handwriting and design is so consistent across its hundreds of pages that for centuries people could not believe it was the work of more than one scribe. The true mystery, therefore, is not supernatural but human. Could a single person have physically produced this? Modern analysis suggests the answer is a qualified yes, but the reality is almost as extraordinary as the myth. Paleographers who study the script note that the handwriting, while remarkably uniform, does show subtle variations in the pressure and flow of the ink, consistent with the work of a single, highly disciplined hand over a long period. The text shows no signs of aging, illness, or changing eyesight in the scribe, which would be expected over a typical decades-long project. This leads experts to a compelling conclusion. The Codex Gigas was likely the life's work of one dedicated monk, writing in a self-imposed isolation that might have lasted 20 to 30 years. He would have lived in a silent cell, meticulously preparing the vellum, mixing his inks, and copying texts from a carefully curated library, his entire world focused on the slow, sacred act of creation. The resources required were immense, pointing to a monastery of significant wealth and ambition sponsoring this monumental project. Why undertake such an endeavor? The book was likely intended as a symbol of ultimate piety and scholarly devotion, a physical embodiment of the monastery's prestige and its role as a guardian of knowledge. The inclusion of the devil's portrait, far from being a blasphemous tribute, was a common medieval practice, a vivid reminder of the evil one must resist on the path to salvation, making the heavenly city on the facing page shine all the brighter. The Codex Gigas, therefore, stands at the crossroads of faith, fear, and human endurance. It is a testament not to a pact with darkness, but to the incredible focus one individual can achieve, a lifetime of disciplined labor bound in wood and skin. It represents the medieval mind's desire to contain the entire cosmos, both its light and its shadows, within the pages of a single, heavy, breathtaking book. The weight of a single, silent word can haunt a nation for centuries. In the fading light of a summer evening in 1590, English Captain John White waded ashore on Roanoke Island, his heart heavy with both hope and dread. He had left this very spot 3 years earlier, sailing back to England to secure supplies for the fledgling colony he governed, a community that included his own daughter, son-in-law, and infant granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. His return was delayed by war, and now, as he stepped onto the familiar sand, he was met with an emptiness that chilled him to the bone. The settlement was gone. The small cottages and fortifications had been carefully dismantled, not destroyed. There were no signs of a struggle, no hastily dug graves, no scattered belongings. It was as if the entire community of approximately 115 souls had simply vanished into the vast American wilderness. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post at the entrance to the abandoned fort, Croatoan. On a nearby tree, the letters CRO were etched as if the carver had been interrupted. This word was not a cry for help or a message of despair. It was the name of a nearby island and the Native American tribe, the Croatan, who lived there and who had been generally friendly to the English. In his previous instructions, White had agreed with the settlers that if they were forced to leave, they should carve a Maltese cross into a tree as a sign of distress. There was no cross, only the name. A storm was brewing, and White's crew refused to sail further south to search Croatoan Island. He was forced to return to England, leaving the mystery unsolved, a ghost story etched into the very foundation of American history. The most logical and enduring theory is that the colonists, facing starvation and isolation, did exactly what the carving implied. They went to live with the Croatan people. This was not an unheard of choice in that era. Earlier English explorers had left men behind who were known to have integrated into local tribes. The colonists had no supplies, and the Croatan possessed the knowledge to survive in that land. Over generations, they would have intermarried, their language and customs blending into those of their hosts. This theory is supported by later reports from English explorers in the 17th century, who encountered Native Americans with gray eyes, European features, and knowledge of Christianity, who claimed descent from white ancestors. Yet, definitive archaeological proof has remained elusive. No concentrated burial site or distinctively English artifacts from that specific group have been found on Croatoan Island or the mainland. The alternative theories are darker. Perhaps the colony fractured, with some attempting to sail back to England in a small boat and being lost at sea. Maybe they were attacked by a hostile neighboring tribe or even by the Spanish, who viewed English settlements as a threat to their own claims. Each scenario is possible, but none carries the clear, intentional marker of that carved word. Modern science has taken up the search. Archaeologists have excavated sites on Roanoke, finding tantalizing fragments, like a patch of English pottery buried alongside Native American artifacts, suggesting trade or coexistence. Genealogists and DNA researchers have attempted to trace lineages from the lost colonists through possible descendants in local Native American communities, but the genetic trail, after so many centuries and generations, is incredibly faint and difficult to isolate. The power of the Roanoke story lies in its perfect ambiguity. It is a historical cliffhanger with no final page. The colonists did not leave a journal of their last days. They left a single, deliberate, and frustratingly calm word, Croatoan. It feels like an answer, but without the rest of the sentence, it remains the ultimate question. The lost colony is more than a puzzle about a group of people. It is a metaphor for the terrifying vulnerability of those early transatlantic dreams. It represents the immense, unknowable continent that swallowed small European ambitions whole, and the profound cultural intersections that may have occurred, leaving traces too subtle for our shovels and scanners to find. Their disappearance holds a mirror to our own need for closure, reminding us that history, like a deep forest, does not always give up its secrets. Their disappearance holds a mirror to our own need for closure, but the most profound disappearance in human history is not of a colony, but of an entire kind of human. For over 200,000 years, the Neanderthals were not our primitive cousins. They were the masters of Europe and Western Asia. They were a robust, intelligent people, adapted to survive the harsh Ice Age climates. They crafted sophisticated stone tools, controlled fire, buried their dead with care, and created abstract art on cave walls. They were, in every sense, a successful human species. Then, around 40,000 years ago, as our own ancestors, Homo sapiens, expanded out of Africa and into these same territories, the Neanderthal world began to shrink. Within a few thousand years, they were gone. Their quiet exit from the stage of prehistory is not a simple story of replacement, but a haunting, complex mystery about the nature of contact between two kinds of human. What happened when we finally met? For a long time, the narrative was stark and brutal. It was a story of conquest. The thinking was that modern humans, with our superior cognitive abilities, complex language, and advanced social structures, simply outcompeted or violently eradicated our less intelligent, brutish rivals. This view painted the Neanderthals as a dead end, a branch on the human family tree that was pruned by our inevitable superiority. Modern science, however, has completely rewritten this script, revealing a far more nuanced and intimate drama. Genetic sequencing of Neanderthal bones has delivered a stunning revelation. Most people of non-African descent today carry within their cells a small but significant inheritance, roughly 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. This is not a trace of ancient conflict, but a permanent record of connection. Our ancestors did not just meet the Neanderthals, they sometimes lived alongside them, shared landscapes, and had families together. This genetic legacy proves that the two groups were not separate species in the way we once thought, but close relatives who could and did interbreed, producing fertile offspring whose descendants walk among us today. This discovery transforms the mystery of their disappearance from a simple question of victory and defeat into a delicate puzzle of integration and absorption. If we were so similar and could even have children together, why did the Neanderthal genetic and cultural identity ultimately fade away? The answer likely lies in a slow, subtle convergence of pressures, a perfect storm of challenges where modern humans held a slight but decisive edge. One key factor may have been social organization. Evidence suggests Homo sapiens developed larger, more extensive trade networks and social alliances that spanned vast distances. This web of connection would have provided a crucial safety net during times of scarcity, allowing information, resources, and mates to flow between groups. Neanderthal communities, while intelligent and caring, appear to have lived in smaller, more isolated bands. In the face of a rapidly changing climate and a new competitor, this social fragility could have been a profound disadvantage. Another subtle edge may have come from the way we used technology and symbols. Both groups made tools, but modern human toolkits show a breathtaking diversity and rapid innovation over time. We see evidence of specialized weapons for distant hunting, like finely crafted spear throwers, and the use of materials like bone and antler. More tellingly, the symbolic world of Homo sapiens exploded with creativity, from intricate beadwork and carvings to the magnificent cave paintings of Lascaux and Chauvet. This explosion of art and personal adornment speaks to a capacity for abstract thought, complex communication, and shared cultural identity that may have strengthened group cohesion in ways we are only beginning to understand. While Neanderthals certainly had symbolic practices, the sheer scale and consistency of modern human expression suggest a cognitive or cultural difference that translated into a powerful adaptive advantage. Yet to frame this as a simple loss is to miss the deeper truth revealed by their DNA in our own bodies. The Neanderthals did not go entirely extinct. They were, in a very real sense, absorbed into the expanding human family. Their genes, honed over millennia of survival in Eurasia, provided our ancestors with valuable adaptations, such as immune system traits that helped fight off local pathogens and perhaps even traits related to skin and hair that suited colder environments. In this light, their story is not one of failure, but of a profound and ancient merger. Their disappearance as a distinct people asks us to reconsider the very nature of human history. It was not a linear march of progress where one type replaced another. but a messy, intertwined story of coexistence, competition, and ultimately combination. Their silent departure leaves us with a humbling legacy written in our own flesh and blood, a permanent reminder that we are not a pure lineage, but the rich, blended descendants of many human journeys. 5,000 years ago, on a bend of the River Boyne in Ireland, a community began a project that would outlast empires. They gathered over 200,000 tons of stone and earth, shaping it into a vast, grass-covered mound nearly 300 feet in diameter. This is Newgrange, a passage tomb so ancient it predates Stonehenge by 1,000 years and the Great Pyramids of Giza by centuries. To enter is to walk down a long, narrow passageway of immense, precisely fitted stones, finally arriving at a cross-shaped chamber deep in the heart of the mound. The engineering alone is a marvel, with a corbelled stone roof that has kept the inner sanctum perfectly dry for 5 millennia. But the true genius of Newgrange is not just in its endurance, it is in its alignment with the cosmos. Above the entrance, a small, rectangular opening known as the roof box was constructed with meticulous care. For most of the year, this opening looks out onto darkness. But for a few days around the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, something miraculous happens. As the sun crests the horizon, a narrow beam of golden light pierces through the roof box, creeping slowly down the 60-foot passageway until it floods the central chamber with radiant light for approximately 17 minutes. This is not a chance occurrence. It is a feat of astronomical observation and architectural precision that required generations of knowledge to plan and execute. We can stand in that chamber today and witness the same event, the same shaft of light that Neolithic eyes saw thousands of years ago. Yet this profound experience only deepens the central mystery. If this was merely a tomb, a resting place for the remains of the departed, why go to such extraordinary lengths to capture the first light of the midwinter sun? The intricate art covering many of the stones offers cryptic clues. The walls are engraved with mesmerizing spirals, concentric circles, and zigzag patterns, a symbolic language we can no longer translate. These are not random scratches, but a deliberate cosmology carved in stone. Scholars believe Newgrange was far more than a tomb. It was likely a temple of rebirth, a powerful machine linking the human, celestial, and spiritual worlds. The winter solstice marks the sun's symbolic death and rebirth, the moment the days begin to grow longer again, promising the return of life to the frozen land. By channeling this reborn light into a chamber holding the physical remains of ancestors, the builders created a profound metaphor. They connected the cyclical rebirth of the sun with the enduring presence of their forebears, and by extension, the hoped-for renewal of their crops and community in the coming spring. It was a place where time itself was ritualized, where the anxieties of the dark season were met with a guaranteed, awe-inspiring demonstration of cosmic order. The mystery endures because we can measure the alignment and admire the art, but we cannot fully enter the minds that conceived it. What ceremonies took place in that sun-drenched chamber? Were only priests allowed to witness the event, or did the whole community gather on the mound outside? Did the spirals represent the journey of the soul, the cycles of time, or the very path of the sunlight they so revered? Newgrange stands as a silent testament to a world where death was not an end, but a turn in a greater cycle, and where humanity's place was to carefully, brilliantly mark that turn in stone and earth. It challenges our modern separation of science and spirit, showing us a culture for whom tracking the sun's path was both a practical necessity and the deepest form of prayer. A perfect sphere of quartz can hold an entire universe of deception. In the shadowy world of antiquities collecting, few objects have captured the modern imagination like the crystal skulls. These are life-sized, often hauntingly realistic carvings of human skulls, meticulously shaped from a single block of clear or milky quartz. Their surfaces are polished to a glassy, ethereal sheen, and when light passes through them, they seem to glow with an inner life. For over a century, they have been presented as relics of lost pre-Columbian civilizations, perhaps the Aztecs or Maya, artifacts of profound spiritual significance. The most famous, known as the Mitchell-Hedges skull, was allegedly discovered in a Mayan temple in Belize in the 1920s, though its provenance is deeply contested. To see one is to feel an immediate sense of awe, a connection to an ancient and mystical past. This powerful emotional reaction is precisely where the mystery begins, a tangled web of artistry, fraud, and enduring human longing. The central puzzle is not about their beauty, which is undeniable, but about their origin. How could ancient Mesoamerican cultures, without metal tools or modern lapidary equipment, have carved something so complex from quartz crystal, one of the hardest minerals on Earth? The technical challenge is immense. Quartz ranks a 7 on the Mohs hardness scale, meaning it can only be worked by substances of equal or greater hardness, like diamond or modern carborundum. The skulls show no telltale marks of ancient hand tools, such as copper chisels or stone abrasives. Instead, microscopic analysis conducted in recent decades on several major skulls, including those held by the British Museum and the Smithsonian, revealed the subtle signatures of modern, rotary wheel carving tools from the 19th century. These studies concluded that key specimens were almost certainly fabricated in Europe, likely in Germany's Idar-Oberstein region, a famed center for gem carving at the time. They were probably created to feed a booming market for the exotic and the occult, sold to wealthy collectors eager to own a piece of a romanticized ancient world. Yet the story does not end with a simple exposé of forgery. The true, enduring mystery of the crystal skulls is not one of archaeology, but of mythology. Why did these particular objects, once debunked, refuse to fade into obscurity? They transcended their status as fakes to become powerful icons in 20th century spiritual and paranormal folklore. They were said to possess supernatural properties, to be repositories of ancient Atlantean knowledge, capable of healing, foretelling the future, or even emitting a low hum. They became stars of alternative history books and Hollywood adventures, symbols of a lost, high-technology past that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. This transformation is a fascinating cultural phenomenon. The skulls filled a vacuum, a desire for tangible magic in a disenchanted modern world. They offered a physical object that seemed to prove the existence of a more mystical, interconnected ancient history than the one presented by academic textbooks. In this way, the crystal skulls serve as a perfect case study in the archaeology of the imagination. They challenge us to ask what makes an artifact real. Is its value determined solely by its verified age and origin, or does the powerful story it inspires, the meaning projected upon it by generations of people, also constitute a kind of truth? For archaeologists, they represent a constant battle against sophisticated forgeries that can muddy the historical record. For the public, they represent something else entirely, a vessel for mystery that factual analysis alone cannot empty. The skulls, therefore, hold a dual lesson. They warn us of the seductive power of a well-crafted narrative over evidence, but they also remind us that the human need for wonder is itself an ancient and powerful force, capable of breathing a strange, enduring life into even the most carefully carved deceptions. In the silent, sun-baked sands of the Tarim Basin, the desert holds its breath around figures that seem to have stepped out of the wrong chapter of history. These are the Tarim Mummies discovered in western China, and their presence is a profound anachronism. Lying in shallow graves for nearly 4,000 years, the dry air and salty soil have preserved them with startling intimacy. We see faces with high cheekbones and long noses, hair that is light brown or even blonde, braided and tucked under felted hats. They wear brightly colored woolen tunics, plaid leggings that look strikingly familiar, and leather boots. To the untrained eye, they look like they could be travelers from ancient Europe, frozen in time on the Silk Road. Yet, carbon dating places them here as early as 1800 years before the Common Era, long before that famous trade route was established. Their very existence asks a single, disruptive question. Who were these people, and what journey brought them to the heart of Asia so many millennia ago? For decades, their origin was one of archaeology's most heated debates. The prevailing assumption was that the region had been continuously inhabited by East Asian peoples. These mummies, with their distinctly Caucasian features, seemed to challenge that narrative entirely. Were they lost traders, a wandering band of mercenaries, or the remnants of a forgotten colony? The answers began to emerge not from artifacts alone, but from the mummies themselves, from the genetic code preserved within their ancient cells. Advanced DNA analysis revealed a story written in their bones. The Tarim mummies show a deep ancestral link to ancient North Eurasian populations, with significant contributions from early Indo-European peoples related to the Yamnaya culture of the steppes. This genetic signature points to an epic prehistoric migration, a slow movement of people eastward across the vast grasslands of Central Asia, a journey of thousands of miles that brought them to the Tarim Basin. This discovery rewrites the early map of human movement. It reveals that the exchange of people, technologies, and ideas across Eurasia began far earlier and was far more complex than we ever imagined. These were not isolated wanderers. They were part of a dynamic, interconnected ancient world. Their material culture tells a story of adaptation and synthesis. They raised cattle and sheep, worked bronze, and wove their intricate textiles on sophisticated looms. Yet, they also lived in an oasis environment, likely cultivating wheat and millet, creating a unique way of life at the crossroads of worlds. What language did they speak? While no written records have been found, linguists suspect it may have been a form of Tocharian, an extinct branch of the Indo-European language family later attested in the very same region. If so, they were distant linguistic cousins to the peoples of ancient Europe, Persia, and India, living on the easternmost frontier of that vast linguistic family. The final layer of the mystery is not their arrival, but their quiet fade from the historical record. After flourishing for nearly 2,000 years, this distinctive population seems to vanish, absorbed by the tides of later migrations and the rising dominance of other groups in the region. Their genetic legacy, while detectable in some modern populations, was diluted over centuries. This is not a story of conquest or catastrophe, but of gradual integration, a slow blending into the fabric of Central Asian history. Their hauntingly preserved remains are not symbols of a lost race, but poignant reminders of the incredible fluidity of ancient human populations. They force us to abandon simplistic ideas of fixed ethnic territories and instead see the past as a vibrant tapestry of movement, meeting, and mixture. The Tarim mummies are silent ambassadors from a lost diaspora, their woven plaids and leather boots telling a story of resilience and journey that forever changes our understanding of how deeply intertwined the ancient world truly was. A mystery does not need to be thousands of years old to captivate the world. In the heart of California's Death Valley, on a bone-dry lakebed called Racetrack Playa, stones have been taking silent, solitary journeys for decades. The evidence is written plainly in the cracked mud, long, graceful trails that curve and zigzag for hundreds of feet, ending at a rock that looks as if it has been resting there for centuries. The scene is a perfect contradiction, a trail of motion leading to an object that seems utterly immovable. For generations, these sailing stones presented a riddle that was both utterly modern and profoundly perplexing. How could rocks weighing hundreds of pounds slide across a flat desert floor, leaving behind tracks as deliberate as a signature, with no human or animal to push them? The theories were as creative as they were varied. Some suggested powerful, localized dust devils or hurricane-force winds that only struck when no one was watching. Others whispered about magnetic anomalies or even playful spirits. The most frustrating part was that no one had ever seen them move. The rocks kept their secret schedule, moving only under the cover of winter darkness or in the isolated vastness of the playa when no scientists were present. The solution required a perfect alignment of patience, technology, and a willingness to embrace simple, elegant physics. In 2014, a team of researchers equipped with GPS units and time-lapse cameras finally caught the stones in the act. The answer was not in the wind alone, but in a delicate, temporary partnership between ice, water, and breeze. During cold winter nights, rare rainfall would pool on the playa and freeze into thin, window-pane sheets of ice around the rocks. As the sun rose and temperatures warmed slightly, this ice would break into large, floating panels. Then, a light wind, just strong enough to catch these panels, would push them across the now slick surface of watery mud. The ice sheets, acting like invisible, brittle sails, would nudge the rocks forward at speeds slower than a walking pace, carving those meandering trails into the soft earth below. Once the sun evaporated the water and melted the ice, only the stone and its mysterious track remained under the blazing sun, a puzzle for another season. This mystery's inclusion here is a vital reminder. Not every archaeological enigma is about lost civilizations or ancient technology. Some are about the patient process of observation itself. The sailing stones show us that the natural world is still full of magic that has a logical, beautiful explanation waiting to be uncovered. It illustrates the scientific method in its purest form, a cycle of curiosity, hypothesis, and technological ingenuity that finally lifts the veil on a phenomenon that had sparked the imagination for decades. It proves that wonder and understanding are not opposites, but partners in the endless quest to read the stories written in the earth, even when the authors are stones, ice, and the quiet desert wind. The sea can erase a city from the map in a single night. The Greek city of Helike was a real place of power and wealth, a leading member of the Achaean League known for its sanctuary dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea and earthquakes. In the winter of 373 years before the Common Era, the city met a fate so sudden and complete it passed into legend. Ancient historians like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus recorded the event, a cataclysm of earth and water. A massive earthquake struck the region, violently shaking the ground. Then, just as the terrified citizens fled toward the coast for safety, a colossal tsunami roared in from the Corinthian Gulf, swallowing the city whole. Survivors reported that a grove of sacred trees dedicated to Poseidon was pulled beneath the waves, a haunting detail that seemed to signal the god's own wrath. Helike vanished, submerged into a coastal lagoon or the open sea, its exact location fading from memory until it became a cautionary tale, a myth about divine punishment. For over 2,000 years, its existence was a ghost in the historical record, a story told but never seen. The mystery was not if the disaster happened, but where the city's remains could possibly lie, buried under centuries of silt and shifting shorelines. The search became an archaeological quest for a phantom, requiring a different kind of digging. Researchers turned to a blend of geology and history, studying ancient texts for geographical clues, and then using core sampling and ground-penetrating radar to scan the coastal plains of the northern Peloponnese. They were looking for a layer of destruction, a sudden, violent interruption in the orderly strata of soil and sediment, and they found it. In the late 20th century, evidence began to emerge from beneath olive groves and farmland. Archaeologists identified ruins buried under thick layers of lagoon deposits, structures dating precisely to the classical period. They uncovered pottery, coins, and building foundations, all abruptly sealed by a layer of marine shells and sea-borne pebbles, the unmistakable fingerprint of a tsunami. This was not a gradual sinking but a violent, single-event burial. The lost city of Helaik had been found not beneath the open sea, but entombed under meters of earth, its coastline having silted up over the millennia, turning the ancient seafloor into dry land. The discovery transformed the mystery. The question was no longer whether Helaik existed, but exactly how the disaster unfolded and what the full scale of the city can teach us. Piecing together that night requires reading the geological record like a forensic report. The evidence suggests a complex sequence where the earthquake first caused the soft, saturated ground of the coastal plain to liquefy, a process where solid earth briefly behaves like a fluid, collapsing buildings from below. This was followed almost immediately by the tsunami wave, which swept inland, carrying debris and sealing the ruins under a watery blanket of sediment. The city was hit with a 1-2 punch from which there was no recovery. Helaik stands now as a powerful testament to the convergence of myth and history. It proves that some of our most dramatic ancient stories are rooted in real, observable events, filtered through the lens of cultural understanding. For the Greeks, the destruction was framed as the action of an angry god. For modern science, it is a tragic case study in coastal seismic hazards, a reminder of the immense and sudden power of the natural world. The city's silent stones, slowly being uncovered, offer a sobering connection to a single, catastrophic night. They tell us that sometimes the most enduring legends are not fantasies but memories, etched not in stone, but in the collective trauma of a people, waiting patiently under the soil for their story to be unearthed and understood. Sometimes the most compelling mysteries are not about what is hidden, but about what we desperately wish to see. In the quiet Bosnian town of Visoko, a series of rolling, forested hills have become the center of an international firestorm. Since 2005, a controversial claim has transformed this landscape, asserting that these are not hills at all, but the largest and oldest pyramids on Earth, constructed by a lost civilization over 10,000 years ago. Proponents point to the slopes striking symmetry, their seemingly flat sides aligning with the cardinal directions, and what they interpret as man-made stone paving and tunnel networks beneath. It is a narrative of epic scale, promising to rewrite human history from the heart of the Balkans. Mainstream geologists and archaeologists, however, have examined the site and reached a near-unanimous verdict. The hills are natural formations, a common type known as flat-topped mesas, created by the relentless forces of erosion acting on layers of sedimentary rock over millions of years. The so-called paving stones are broken conglomerate rock, a natural geological phenomenon, and the tunnels are likely old mine workings or natural fissures. This is not a debate with two equal sides in the scientific community. It is a profound clash between an extraordinary claim and the established, observable processes of the Earth. The true enigma of Visoko, therefore, is not geological but human. It is a powerful case study in how history and mystery intertwine in the modern age. Why does such a theory, despite overwhelming counter-evidence, capture the global imagination and attract thousands of visitors and volunteers? The answer speaks to a deep and timeless longing. The idea of a colossal, forgotten pyramid culture in Europe offers a dramatic, romantic narrative. It suggests a hidden golden age, a lost chapter of human achievement that makes our past feel grander and more mysterious. It provides a tangible, visitable site for that feeling, a place where you can stand on a slope and feel you are touching a secret history that textbooks have ignored. This public fascination highlights a certain distrust of institutional science, seen by some as overly cautious or dismissive, and a hunger for discoveries that feel personally revolutionary. The controversy underscores a fundamental principle of archaeology, the critical importance of methodology. Distinguishing human construction from nature's artistry requires more than observing shapes that look designed. It demands rigorous analysis, stratigraphy to study soil layers, careful dating of materials, and a willingness to follow the evidence even when it leads to a less spectacular but truthful conclusion. The hills of Visoko, in their silent, enduring presence, teach a nuanced lesson. They remind us that our planet is capable of creating breathtaking, seemingly artificial forms through its own ancient, patient processes. And they challenge us to wonder where our sense of wonder should rightly be directed, at the allure of a fictionalized past, or at the genuine, staggering majesty of the natural world that has been sculpting pyramids of its own for eons. A map of the ancient world can be read in more ways than one. If you were to draw lines connecting some of humanity's most sacred and mysterious sites, a curious pattern might emerge. A straight line could seemingly run from the Great Pyramid of Giza through the ancient city of Petra and onward to the forgotten temples of Angkor Wat. Another might link Stonehenge to the Carnac Alignments and then across the sea. This idea that our ancestors built their greatest monuments along invisible energy pathways or as part of a global geometric plan is one of alternative history's most enduring visions. These hypothetical channels are often called ley lines or great circles, and they propose a hidden architecture to our planet's past, a web of intention spun across continents. The theory suggests a shared, lost knowledge, possessed perhaps by a single advanced civilization that seeded the world, or an innate understanding of the Earth's own magnetic or telluric energies, which ancient builders learned to harness and honor. It is a profoundly appealing narrative, offering a sense of hidden order beneath the apparent chaos of history, a secret blueprint that makes the scattered wonders of the world feel like pieces of a single, magnificent puzzle. The mathematical and geometric coincidences presented can be startling. Certain sites do share intriguing alignments with solar, lunar, or stellar events, and some do fall roughly along great circle routes, the shortest paths between points on a sphere. Proponents meticulously chart these connections, finding triangles, hexagons, and other sacred geometries encoded in the global landscape. The implication is irresistible that our ancestors could not have accomplished this independently. It points to a guiding intelligence, a prehistoric global survey of breathtaking accuracy, implying technologies or spiritual sciences we have since forgotten. This vision transforms isolated archaeological mysteries into components of a grand, deliberate design, answering the why of their location with a cosmic purpose. Yet, the scientific and archaeological perspective offers a different, more grounded interpretation. Skeptics point to a fundamental principle of statistics, the law of truly large numbers. With thousands of significant ancient sites dotting the globe, drawing straight lines between them will inevitably produce apparent alignments purely by chance. The process often involves selective linking, choosing a few points that fit the desired line while ignoring the many that do not. Furthermore, human settlement itself is not random. Communities naturally arose along trade routes, river valleys, mountain passes, and coastlines, geographical features that themselves often run in straight lines. A sacred site built on a high hill for visibility or defense might share a sightline with another hilltop settlement miles away, not because of esoteric knowledge, but because both locations offered the same practical advantages. The alignments from this viewpoint are a retrospective pattern we impose, connecting dots that were never meant to be connected by their original builders. This does not diminish the mystery, it simply shifts its nature. The true fascination of the Ley Line Theory is not in proving a lost global civilization, but in understanding our own deep psychological drive. Humans are innate pattern seekers, our brains wired to find faces in clouds and meaning in randomness. This propensity, known as apophenia, is a survival trait that helped our ancestors identify predators in the brush and predict seasonal changes. In the modern world, it manifests in our longing to see a coherent story in the vast, fragmented record of prehistory. The idea of a global network satisfies a profound need for unity and purpose, transforming the lonely, enigmatic monuments of forgotten cultures into chapters of a single, epic human story. It reflects a desire for the past to be as interconnected as our present digital world, a testament to a time when humanity was spiritually and technologically unified rather than divided. The stones themselves are silent on the matter. The builders of the Great Pyramid left meticulous records about quarrying and logistics, but none about energy grids. The architects of Stonehenge aligned their monument to the solstice sun, a local and celestial event, not to a temple on the other side of the world. Each culture operated within its own cosmological framework, interpreting the landscape and the heavens through a unique lens of myth and necessity. The global alignment theory, in its modern form, is ultimately a mirror. It shows us our own hunger for a lost golden age, a world where every mysterious stone circle and every silent pyramid is part of a conversation we have only just begun to overhear, a whisper of connection that may say more about the seeker than the sought. A story can become an artifact all its own. In 1938, a tale began to circulate about a discovery in the remote Bayan Mountains of China. According to the account, a Chinese archaeologist named Kai Pu Te entered a cave system and found more than just ancient pottery. He reportedly discovered rows of neat, circular stone discs, each about a foot across with a hole in the center, resembling strange vinyl records. Alongside them lay skeletal remains described as unusually small and delicate. The stones, the story goes, were etched with a spiral of tiny, unknown hieroglyphics. Years later, a scientist allegedly succeeded in translating the script. The message was staggering. It told of a spacecraft that crashed in the mountains millennia ago. Its occupants, beings called the Dropa, stranded and unable to repair their vessel. They tried to make peace with the local mountain tribes but were met with fear and hostility. This narrative, of course, suggests not just contact, but a tragic chronicle of ancient extraterrestrial visitors written in stone. It is a compelling, cinematic mystery, perfect for the pages of an alternative history book. Yet, here is the pivotal twist in this particular tale. Despite decades of searching, no reputable museum or university in the world possesses a single one of these Dropa stones. No photographs of the original excavation exist, and the principal figures in the story, like Kai Pu Te, cannot be verified in any academic records. Mainstream archaeologists and linguists universally classify the account as a modern fabrication, a hoax that likely originated in mid-century European magazines before being amplified and reshaped over time. Its inclusion here is crucial, not as evidence of aliens, but as a case study in the archaeology of belief itself. This is a manufactured mystery, a narrative artifact built from whole cloth that nevertheless took root in popular culture. It demonstrates how a potent idea, when dressed in the convincing language of discovery, translation, and forbidden knowledge, can escape the bounds of fiction and become accepted as a historical puzzle in waiting. The story taps into the same yearning that gives power to other enigmas, a desire for a past that is more wondrous and interconnected than the standard timeline allows. But it also serves as a vital lesson in discernment. It highlights the difference between an unsolved mystery, like the Voynich Manuscript or the Antikythera Mechanism, which are physical objects with verified origins that defy explanation, and a cultural myth that presents itself as a lost artifact. The Dropa stones remind us that in our quest to uncover the secrets of the past, we must also learn to examine the provenance of the stories we are told, to ask for evidence, and to understand that sometimes the most enduring mysteries are not buried in caves, but woven from our own boundless imagination. Andesite is a hard, unforgiving stone, yet in the hands of a carver, it can be made to tell any story. In the 1960s, a Peruvian physician named Javier Cabrera Darquia began acquiring a collection of carved stones from local farmers who claimed they had found them in ancient burial caves near the town of Ica. These were not simple artifacts. The Ica Stones, as they became known, are thousands of andesite river rocks, each meticulously engraved with a dizzying array of scenes that seem to rip pages from a history book that does not exist. On their dark, polished surfaces, human figures are depicted in intimate contact with creatures we recognize as dinosaurs, riding them like beasts of burden, hunting them with spears, and even performing what looks like surgery on them. Other stones show complex star charts, maps of unknown continents, and detailed illustrations of advanced medical procedures like heart transplants and cesarean sections, executed with tools and knowledge that feel jarringly modern. To encounter these images is to experience a profound cognitive dissonance, a collision between everything we think we know about deep time and a narrative that places humanity directly in the age of giants. The immediate, visceral question is not what they show, but how such a thing could possibly be. The stones present two mutually exclusive realities. Either they are genuine artifacts from an unimaginably ancient, technologically advanced civilization that witnessed the last dinosaurs, or they are something else entirely. The scientific and archaeological community has examined the stones and reached a near-unanimous verdict. There is no verifiable archaeological context for them. No stones have ever been found in a documented, sealed excavation by professional archaeologists. The style of the engravings shows no weathering in the grooves, which would be expected after centuries buried in soil, and the depictions are suspiciously clear, drawn from a modern understanding of dinosaur anatomy based on 20th century paleontology. Farmers later admitted to creating the stones themselves, using metal tools, and then aging them with animal waste to give them a patina of antiquity. They were a cottage industry crafted to sell to eager collectors. This revelation seems to solve the mystery, yet it only deepens it in a more profound way. The enigma of the Ica Stones is no longer about ancient astronauts or lost worlds. It is a psychological and cultural puzzle. Why were they made, and why, even after the confessions and the scientific debunking, do they retain such a powerful grip on the imagination? The motivation for their creation appears to have been initially economic, a way for struggling farmers to create a valuable commodity from river rocks. But their enduring appeal speaks to a deeper, almost universal human desire. They provide a tangible, physical object that seems to offer proof against a scientific establishment perceived as rigid or dismissive. For those who feel that mainstream history has overlooked or suppressed evidence of a more dramatic past, the stones become powerful totems. They are a rebellion in rock form, a challenge to the accepted timeline that says humans and dinosaurs were separated by 65 million years. They cater to a longing for a past that is more epic, more mysterious, and more directly connected to our own story. In this light, the stones serve as a perfect, if paradoxical, archaeological lesson. They are a cautionary tale about the critical importance of provenance and methodology, reminding us that extraordinary claims require not just extraordinary evidence, but evidence that can be independently verified and contextualized. Yet they also illuminate the powerful role of narrative in our relationship with history. We do not just want to know what happened, we want a story that resonates, that feels significant and wondrous. The Ica Stones, in their fabricated grandeur, fulfill that emotional need where factual history sometimes feels silent. They stand as a permanent monument not to a lost civilization, but to our own enduring capacity for wonder, and the delicate, essential line we must walk between an open mind and a critical eye. The debate over the Sphinx's true age is carved into its very stones. Officially, This colossal guardian of the Giza Plateau is attributed to the Old Kingdom pharaoh Khafre, who reigned around 2,500 years before the Common Era, making the monument roughly 4,500 years old. Its face is often said to bear his likeness, and its alignment with Khafre's Valley Temple and Pyramid Complex seems to cement this historical placement. Yet, a closer look at the statue's weathered body tells a different, more ancient story to some observers. The most compelling evidence for a radically older Sphinx comes not from archaeology but from geology. In the early 1990s, geologist Robert Schoch examined the deep, undulating, vertical fissures that groove the limestone core of the Sphinx and the walls of its enclosure. To his trained eye, these patterns did not resemble the effects of wind and sandblasting, which typically create horizontal, sharp-edged weathering. Instead, he saw the signature of water, specifically heavy, prolonged rainfall that would have saturated the stone and carved those distinctive, rounded, vertical channels. This interpretation, if correct, is revolutionary. The climate of the Giza Plateau has been hyper-arid for the last 5,000 years. To produce that kind of water erosion, the Sphinx would need to have been exposed to a much wetter period, a time of significant seasonal rains that last occurred in Egypt between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago. This would push the monument's origin back into a pre-dynastic era, a time before the pharaohs, when the Sahara was a greener, more hospitable place. Such a date would mean the Sphinx is not merely older than we thought, but perhaps a relic of a sophisticated culture that existed millennia before the rise of dynastic Egypt, a civilization whose name and history are completely lost to us. Mainstream Egyptologists and many other geologists strongly contest this view. They argue that the weathering can be adequately explained by a combination of factors, including not just wind, but also the effects of morning dew and salt crystallization. The limestone of the Sphinx enclosure is layered, with some strata being softer than others, and these weaker layers could have eroded more quickly from simple exposure, creating the recessed, undulating profile. They also point to the clear archaeological context linking the Sphinx to Khafre's pyramid complex, and note that no artifacts or cultural evidence from such an advanced, hypothetical pre-dynastic civilization have ever been found at Giza. The debate, therefore, sits at a fascinating crossroads. It is a clash between two very different ways of reading the same evidence, one geological and the other archaeological. It challenges us to consider the limitations of our own historical frameworks. Could our established chronology be a cage that prevents us from seeing a deeper truth? Or are we, in our desire for mystery, reading too much into the natural scars of time? The Sphinx itself offers no easy answers, only its silent, imposing presence. Its enigmatic smile seems to guard not just a pharaoh's tomb, but the secret of its own birth, a riddle written in stone and rain that may forever divide those who study the sands of time. Beneath the Kremlin's iconic domes, a library of whispers waits. While the Sphinx guards its age in stone, Russia's capital is said to conceal a treasure of a different kind, a lost archive of parchment and ink known as the Liberia, or the Library of Ivan the Terrible. This is not a myth from the distant past, but a legend rooted in the tumultuous 16th century, a story that blurs the line between historical possibility and national folklore. It begins with a marriage. In 1472, Ivan III, grandfather of Ivan the Terrible, married Sophia Paleologina, the niece of the last Byzantine emperor. When she came to Moscow, she is said to have brought with her a priceless dowry, not just of jewels but of knowledge, a collection of ancient Greek and Roman manuscripts salvaged from the fallen Constantinople. This library, the story goes, was expanded over generations, becoming a secret hoard of classical wisdom guarded by the Tsars in a hidden chamber beneath the Kremlin's foundations. The idea is intoxicating. Imagine the potential contents, perhaps lost plays by Sophocles, complete histories by Livy, or scientific treatises by Archimedes that never made it to the scriptoriums of medieval Europe. Such a find would be a seismic event for our understanding of the ancient world, a second chance at the cultural catastrophe that was the loss of the Library of Alexandria. Yet, for all its narrative power, the Liberia remains a ghost in the historical record. No inventory from Ivan the Terrible's time mentions it, and no contemporary account describes its construction or location. The first written references to such a hidden library appear centuries later, in the notes of foreign diplomats and travelers who heard rumors circulating in the Moscow courts. These tales gained momentum in the 19th century, becoming a beloved national mystery, a symbol of Russia's deep, hidden connection to the classical roots of Western civilization. The search has been as dramatic as the legend itself. For hundreds of years, treasure hunters, archaeologists, and even state-sponsored commissions have probed the labyrinthine depths beneath the Kremlin. They have mapped forgotten tunnels, surveyed the thickness of walls with sounding devices, and examined every cryptic carving that might point to a sealed door. During Soviet-era renovations of the Kremlin armory in the 1930s, workers discovered a previously unknown chamber, sparking a frenzy of excitement, but it contained no scrolls, only architectural fragments. Modern ground-penetrating radar has revealed voids and anomalies, but these are likely structural spaces, cisterns, or the foundations of older buildings, not lined bookshelves. The enduring mystery of the Liberia is not really about logistics, whether a room could exist, but about probability and desire. Could a collection of fragile parchment and vellum survive for 5 centuries in a damp, subterranean environment without any trace of its caretakers? It seems unlikely. The legend likely grew from a kernel of truth, perhaps a modest collection of books that belonged to Sophia, which was later dispersed or destroyed in one of Moscow's many fires. Over time, this small truth was magnified by hope and national pride into the vision of a vast, hidden Alexandria of the North. In this way, the lost library serves a purpose greater than any single archaeological find. It represents the universal, aching dream of recovery. It is about the hope that not all is lost, that the great conversations of the past might still be heard, that a door might one day open onto a room where time has stood still, and the voices of antiquity are waiting, perfectly preserved, to speak again. The Liberia may be a phantom, but the search for it keeps alive a vital flame, the belief that our history is still full of quiet rooms, and that the next turn in a dark tunnel might lead not to an end but to a forgotten beginning. A piece of linen can hold an image that defies both time and explanation. The Shroud of Turin is a 14-foot-long cloth of simple herringbone weave, and upon its surface rests the faint, straw-colored imprint of a man who appears to have suffered a traumatic end. The figure is shown front and back, as if the cloth had been laid over a body and then folded back over the head, creating a double full-length portrait. The details are hauntingly specific, showing what look like wounds consistent with Roman crucifixion, a puncture in the wrist, marks from a scourging across the back, and a wound in the side. For millions of the faithful, this is not an artistic depiction but a direct miraculous transfer, the very burial shroud of Jesus Christ, bearing the literal image of his suffering and resurrection. This belief has made the shroud one of the most venerated, studied, and controversial objects on Earth, a single artifact where faith and science meet in a storm of questions. The central scientific mystery is not about belief but about process. How was this image created? It is not painted. No pigments or brushstrokes have been found on the fibers. The coloration resides only on the very topmost fibrils of the linen threads, a superficial effect more like a scorch or a chemical change. It possesses a three-dimensional quality, as if the intensity of the image corresponds to the distance between the cloth and a body, a property no known medieval artist could have encoded. Attempts to replicate it using every conceivable technique from the proposed time period, from vapors and acids to direct contact with a bas-relief, have produced only crude imitations that fail to capture the shroud's subtlety and depth of information. This failure of replication is what keeps the door to mystery open, suggesting the possibility of a unique, one-time event, whether natural or otherwise. Then, in 1988, science delivered what seemed to be a definitive verdict. With permission from the Vatican, small samples from a corner of the shroud were sent to 3 independent laboratories for radiocarbon dating. The results converged, placing the linen's origin squarely in the medieval period, between 1260 and 1390 years after the Common Era. This appeared to settle the matter, branding the shroud a clever, if inexplicable, medieval forgery. Yet the controversy did not end, it evolved. Proponents of the shroud's authenticity raised pointed questions. Could the sample taken have been from a medieval repair, a patch woven into the original, older cloth? They point to chemical studies suggesting the sampled area contained contaminants like vanillin, a compound that degrades over time, which could have skewed the carbon dating toward a younger age. Others propose historical pathways, that the shroud could have been kept hidden for centuries before surfacing in France in the 1350s, its true age unknown even to its medieval owners. The debate, therefore, exists in a fascinating limbo. The carbon date is a powerful piece of evidence, but the unanswered question of the image's formation remains an equally powerful counterweight. This transforms the Shroud of Turin from a simple artifact into a profound cultural and philosophical mirror. It is a unique intersection where archaeology, chemistry, and art history collide with theology and human longing. It demonstrates how a single object can become a focal point for questions that extend far beyond its material self. For some, it is a test of faith against science. For others, it is a scientific puzzle that medieval technology cannot yet solve. For everyone, it is a testament to the enduring power of an image to hold our gaze, to challenge our tools, and to inspire a search for meaning that spans centuries. The shroud does not provide answers, it sustains a conversation, a quiet, persistent inquiry into the boundaries of history, art, and what we are willing to believe is possible. The silent, orderly rows of Carnac speak of a culture's unified vision, but across the world, another ancient civilization speaks only in symbols we cannot understand. In the ruins of the great cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, part of the Indus Valley civilization that flourished around 2,500 years before the Common Era, archaeologists have unearthed thousands of small, intricately carved objects. Most are square seals made of steatite, a soft stone that was then fired to become hard. They depict a stunning menagerie of animals: unicorns, bulls, elephants, and tigers. But above each image runs a short line of mysterious, elegant symbols. These symbols also appear on pottery, copper tablets, and tools, amounting to over 400 distinct signs, from simple geometric shapes to stylized depictions of fish, jars, and human figures. This is the Indus Valley script, and it represents one of the most profound and frustrating linguistic puzzles on Earth. Since its discovery in the 1870s, it has resisted every single attempt at decipherment, leaving one of humanity's first great urban societies utterly voiceless. The core of the mystery is a fundamental question: is this even a true writing system? Some scholars argue the inscriptions are too short, with most containing only 4 or 5 symbols, to encode a complex language. They suggest it might be a system of non-linguistic symbols representing clan marks, religious icons, or tokens for economic transactions, more akin to heraldry or accountancy than literature. Yet the structure of the script suggests something more. The symbols show clear patterns, with certain signs consistently appearing at the beginning of sequences and others at the end, much like grammatical rules in a written language. Statistical analysis reveals it behaves like a logo-syllabic system, similar to early Sumerian cuneiform, where signs represent both whole words and syllables. This tantalizing evidence points to a full-fledged language, but without a key, it remains a locked vault of information. The primary obstacle is the absence of a Rosetta Stone. No bilingual inscription has ever been found that pairs the Indus script with a known language. Furthermore, the underlying language itself is unknown and likely extinct, with no clear descendant to provide clues. The inscriptions are also frustratingly brief, offering no lengthy narratives or royal decrees that could provide context. Imagine trying to crack a complex code when you only have fragments of grocery lists. That is the scale of the challenge linguists face. Unlocking this script would be a transformative moment in history. It would finally allow the people of the Indus Valley to tell their own story. We could learn about their political structure. Were they ruled by kings or priests, or was theirs a more collective society? We could understand their religious beliefs, giving meaning to the many terracotta figurines and the famous priest-king statue. Most poignantly, we could hear about daily life, their trade, their laws, their personal hopes and struggles. Instead, we are left with only the silent, physical remains of their astonishingly advanced cities, with their grid-like streets, sophisticated drainage systems, and standardized weights, a society of immense sophistication that chose to inscribe its identity on these small, beautiful seals. For now, the civilization remains a whisper in the archaeological record, its stories perfectly preserved in elegant, unreadable symbols, a reminder that the greatest barrier to understanding the past is sometimes not the loss of artifacts, but the loss of the voice that could explain them. From the silent symbols of the Indus Valley, we travel to a landscape where the earth itself was shaped into a story. In the rolling hills of southern Ohio, a colossal serpent uncoils across the ridge of a plateau. This is the Great Serpent Mound, a breathtaking effigy earthwork over 1,300 feet long, its body winding in 7 great curves before culminating in a wide, oval head that some interpret as an open mouth, perhaps about to swallow an egg-shaped mound. To stand at its base is to feel small, but to see it from above is to witness a true geographical marvel, a drawing on such a grand scale that its full form is only revealed from the air. Built approximately 1,000 years ago, most likely by the Fort Ancient culture, though some researchers argue for an earlier origin with the Adena people, this mound is not a tomb. Excavations have found no burials within its earthen coils. This absence of a practical, funerary purpose is precisely what deepens the mystery. Why would a community invest such immense labor, carefully carrying and stacking hundreds of thousands of baskets of soil to create a giant snake in the earth? The answer lies not in utility but in meaning, in a cosmology written in soil and grass. One of the most compelling lines of inquiry points to the sky. The serpent's body aligns with striking astronomical precision. Its head is oriented toward the setting sun on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. Furthermore, the curves of its body may align with the extreme rising and setting points of the moon during its 18.6-year cycle, known as lunar standstills. If intentional, this would transform the mound into a colossal calendar and observatory, anchoring the community to the most profound rhythms of the cosmos. The serpent, in many indigenous cosmologies of the Americas, is a powerful symbol of rebirth and the underworld, intimately connected to the cycles of death and regeneration seen in the seasons and the moon. The mound, then, could be a physical prayer, a way to harmonize the life of the people with the eternal cycles above them. Another interpretation looks to myth and territory. The serpent is a nearly universal symbol, often representing creative or chaotic forces, deities of water and the earth. This specific effigy might depict a central figure from the community's creation stories, a great horned serpent or a benevolent serpentine creator. By shaping its likeness into the land, they would be honoring that being, perhaps to ensure fertility for their crops or balance in their world. Alternatively, the sheer scale and visibility of the mound suggest it could have served as a territorial marker, defining a sacred space for ceremony or a gathering place for multiple communities. Its imposing presence on the landscape would have communicated power, spiritual authority, and a shared identity to all who saw it or approached it. The true power of the Great Serpent Mound's mystery is its silent eloquence. It does not yield its secrets through artifacts or bones. It speaks through its form, its alignment, and its enduring presence. It represents a different way of recording knowledge, not in written text, but in the very contours of the living earth. The people who built it left no written language to explain their work, but they left a sentence a quarter of a mile long, written in soil. We can measure its alignments, we can study its construction, but we cannot fully enter the ceremonial space that brought it to life, to hear the chants or understand the visions that inspired such a monumental act of creation. It remains a testament to a profound and sophisticated relationship with the natural and spiritual worlds, a giant, graceful question mark that invites us to look, not just at the ground but at the sky, and wonder what story they saw written there. The Great Serpent Mound is a testament to a culture that wrote its cosmology in the earth itself, but in the heart of China, another civilization chose to bury its entire world in deep, rectangular pits. In 1986, in the quiet village of Sanxingdui in Sichuan province, workers at a brick factory made a discovery that would shatter the conventional narrative of early Chinese civilization. They uncovered not a tomb, but two sacrificial pits, filled to the brim with artifacts of such staggering artistry and alien beauty that archaeologists could hardly believe their eyes. Here were hundreds of objects in bronze, gold, jade, and ivory, but they bore no resemblance to the elegant ritual vessels of the contemporaneous Shang dynasty to the north. Instead, the pits revealed a universe of surreal and majestic forms. There were masks with bulging, tubular eyes and exaggerated, angular features, some covered in delicate sheets of gold foil. There were towering, intricate bronze trees, one standing over 13 feet tall, with birds and dragons perched on its branches, and most astonishing of all, a life-sized bronze statue of a slender, dignified figure standing on a pedestal, his hands held in a gesture of solemn authority. This was the art of the Sanxingdui culture, a people who flourished around 1200 years before the Common Era along the banks of the Min River, and whose existence had been completely absent from the historical record. Their style was so radically different, so uniquely bold and abstract, that it seemed to have erupted from a separate cultural planet entirely. They built a major walled city, mastered advanced bronze casting on a monumental scale, and developed a rich spiritual life. Yet they left behind no written language, no chronicles of their kings or gods. Their entire story is told through these buried objects, and that story ends with a profound and abrupt silence. Around the year 1000 before the Common Era, for reasons we may never fully understand, the Sanxingdui people meticulously placed their most sacred treasures into these pits, covered them with earth, and then abandoned their city forever. The central, haunting question is not just what their art means, but why they left and where they could have gone. The leading theory points to a catastrophic event, perhaps a massive earthquake that dramatically altered the course of their life-giving river, or a devastating flood that made the area uninhabitable. Such a natural disaster could have shattered their society, leading them to believe their gods had abandoned them, prompting a final, profound ritual of burial before they dispersed. Some archaeologists suggest they may have migrated and merged with other emerging cultures in the region, their distinctive artistic style evolving into something new and unrecognizable. The artifacts themselves offer cryptic clues to their beliefs. The masks with their otherworldly eyes might represent ancestors or deities capable of seeing across realms. The bronze trees could be depictions of a cosmic axis, a ladder connecting heaven, earth, and the underworld, similar to the world trees found in mythologies across the globe. The giant statue may be a priest-king, a conduit between the people and the spiritual world. What is undeniable is that this was a sophisticated, confident, and utterly unique civilization operating independently from the Central Plains. Their discovery forces a complete re-evaluation of early Chinese history, proving it was not a single, unified narrative centered on the Yellow River, but a tapestry of multiple, brilliant, and diverse cultural centers, each with its own vision of the cosmos. The disappearance of Sanxingdui is a poignant reminder of the fragility of cultural memory. Here was a society that reached breathtaking artistic heights, developed complex rituals, and built a thriving city, only to vanish so completely that their very existence was forgotten for 3,000 years. Their buried treasures are not merely artifacts, they are a message in a bottle from a lost world. A brilliant cultural flame that burned brightly, was suddenly and deliberately extinguished and left us with only its dazzling, enigmatic afterimage to ponder. The final whisper of an island's soul is carved into weathered wood. On a handful of surviving wooden tablets, staffs, and ornaments from Rapa Nui, a system of intricate glyphs known as Rongorongo was carefully incised. These are not simple pictures, but a complex script of stylized figures, from human forms and birds to celestial symbols and geometric patterns, arranged in a consistent, alternating sequence that scholars call reverse Boustrophedon. This means the lines of text do not simply run left to right, but rather, the reader would follow one line left to right, then physically turn the tablet 180 degrees to read the next line, as if plowing a field back and forth. This sophisticated structure strongly suggests a true writing system, developed in complete isolation, making it possibly the only indigenous script ever invented in the vast expanse of Oceania. Its very existence is a testament to a profound intellectual flowering on the world's most isolated inhabited island. Yet, what it says, what stories, prayers, or histories it records, is a silence deeper than the surrounding ocean. Like the Indus Valley script, Rongorongo remains completely undeciphered. We can admire its form, analyze its patterns, but we cannot hear its voice. The glyphs could be genealogical records of powerful chiefs, sacred chants invoking the island's birdman cult, or historical chronicles of great voyages and clan conflicts. Each tablet is a library whose language we have forgotten how to read. The tragedy of this loss is magnified by its timing and cause. The knowledge was not lost in some prehistoric fog, but extinguished within living memory. In the 1860s, the island's population was devastated by a series of catastrophic events. Peruvian slave raids abducted nearly half the population, including many community leaders and elders, the very keepers of knowledge. Those who were not taken were later repatriated, only to bring back devastating epidemics that swept through the remaining community. Within a single generation, the social and spiritual fabric of Rapa Nui was torn apart, and the living chain of transmission for the Rongorongo script was severed forever. Later attempts by missionaries and scholars to find someone who could read the glyphs met with failure, the last practitioners having passed. Today, only about 24 objects worldwide are considered authentic Rongorongo artifacts, precious fragments of a lost conversation. The script stands as one of archaeology's most poignant mysteries, not because it is ancient, but because its meaning was so recently and so tragically within our grasp. It is a stark monument to cultural fragility, a reminder that a civilization's greatest achievements, its stories, its wisdom, its very way of seeing the world, can be as vulnerable as the people who carry them. Rongorongo is the final, unreadable page of Easter Island's unique story, a permanent question mark that challenges us to value not just the monuments left behind, but the living knowledge that gives them meaning. These scattered puzzles, from sunken cities to undeciphered scripts, are not merely random holes in our history. When we step back and view them together, a profound pattern emerges from the silence. They are not just individual curiosities, but chapters in a much larger story about the human condition itself. Each enigma, in its own way, speaks to a handful of timeless themes that connect us across the millennia. One of the most haunting is the theme of lost knowledge. We see it in the lonely perfection of the Antikythera Mechanism, a technological peak that vanished for 1,000 years. We feel it in the unreadable lines of the Indus Valley Script and Rongorongo, where entire languages and the histories they held were extinguished, often by the sudden shock of disaster or the slow erosion of time. These are not simple forgettings, but catastrophic cultural amnesias, reminding us that civilization is a fragile flame, easily blown out by conflict, environmental change, or the passing of a single generation of elders. Our own digital age, for all its permanence, is not immune to this same fragility, a humbling parallel that makes these ancient losses feel strikingly contemporary. Another powerful theme is the immense universal drive to build. From the pyramids of Giza to the Moai of Easter Island, from the Serpent Mound of Ohio to the stone spheres of Costa Rica, humanity has repeatedly invested staggering effort into projects with no practical, survival-based purpose. They were not built for shelter, defense, or storage in any conventional sense. This consistent impulse points to something deeper than economics. It points to the spirit. These monuments were acts of faith, astronomy, and identity. They were conversations with the gods, calibrations with the cosmos, and declarations of belonging etched into the very skin of the earth. They tell us that for our ancestors, the most essential construction projects were not granaries or walls, but meaning itself. The need to create lasting markers for beliefs, to anchor a community to a sacred story or a celestial cycle, was a powerful enough motivator to move mountains, literally. This shared drive bridges the gap between cultures, revealing a common human heart beating beneath the surface of different stones. This brings us to the great wall that stands between us and true understanding, the wall of interpretation. Without a written record, without a living voice to explain, we are left as detectives at a silent crime scene. We can measure the alignments of Stonehenge, but we cannot hear the chants that accompanied the solstice sunrise. We can admire the animal carvings at Göbekli Tepe, but we cannot know the myths they illustrated. Our science allows us to date, to map, to analyze materials, but it cannot fully reconstruct the inner world of belief, the emotional resonance of a ritual, or the specific political reason a king might have commissioned a 100-ton statue. We are forever reading a book in a language we only half understand, forced to guess at the plot from the illustrations alone. This limitation is not a failure, but a defining feature of archaeology, a constant reminder that the past is a foreign country with customs we can observe but never fully inhabit. And woven through so many of these stories is that tantalizing, often frustrating, line between what nature creates and what humanity intends. The debate over the Yonaguni Monument or the weathering of the Sphinx centers on this very question. Our minds are pattern-seeking engines, desperate to find design and purpose. This leads to a beautiful tension, a dance between two possibilities. Is that strangely symmetrical hill a pyramid, or a masterpiece of geological chance? Is that sequence of cracks on a cave wall a star chart, or simply the path of ancient water? This ambiguity forces a discipline of humility upon us. It requires us to ask not just what we want to be true, but what the evidence, stripped of our desires, actually suggests. It teaches us that nature is the most sublime and mysterious artist of all, and that sometimes the greatest wonder is not in finding a lost civilization, but in recognizing the awe-inspiring processes that shape our world without any human hand at all. Ultimately, these 40 mysteries are far more than a collection of unsolved riddles. They are a mirror. They reflect our own boundless curiosity, our drive to fill in the blanks of our story. They highlight the current boundaries of our science, showing us where our tools of analysis meet their limits and where imagination must tentatively step in. Most importantly, they teach a profound humility. They show us that past civilizations, whether they wielded bronze tools or charted the stars, possessed depths of knowledge, spiritual insight, and motivational power that we are still striving to comprehend. They were not primitive steps on a ladder leading to us, but complex, sophisticated societies that answered the great questions of existence in their own brilliant ways. In this shared sense of wonder, in this collective leaning forward into the darkness of time with a flashlight of inquiry, we find a powerful unity. The quest to understand these echoes from the past is not a niche academic pursuit, it is a timeless human endeavor. It connects the modern scientist in a lab with the ancient astronomer carving a gear, both gazing up at the same stars and asking, in their own way, how does our world work and what is our place within it? The silence of these mysteries is not an ending but an invitation, a call that has echoed for thousands of years and will continue to draw us forward, one unanswered question at a time. The gears of the Antikythera Mechanism and the silent Moai of Easter Island are not relics of a finished story. They are pieces of a living puzzle, a narrative with pages still missing and chapters yet to be written. Each of these 40 mysteries does more than baffle us. It actively challenges the foundations of what we think we know. They force us to question the linear timeline of progress, to reconsider the capabilities of ancient minds, and to acknowledge the vast, silent gaps in our collective memory. In doing so, they ignite a fundamental human spark, the relentless engine of imagination that drives us to fill in the blanks, to connect the dots across time and space. These enigmas prove that the past is not a shallow pool, but a deep ocean, and we have only just begun to skim its surface. Every undeciphered script, every monument of impossible scale, is an open invitation. It is a call to research with sharper tools, to question with more open minds, and above all, to remain perpetually curious about the world that came before our own. This curiosity is our greatest tool. As we develop new technologies, from advanced genetic sequencing that can trace ancient migrations to artificial intelligence that might one day crack a forgotten language, and as we foster interdisciplinary approaches that blend archaeology with astronomy, geology, and even physics, the possibility remains that some of these long-held secrets will finally yield. A future scan might reveal the true purpose of the Great Pyramid's hidden chambers. A newly discovered manuscript could become the Rosetta Stone for the Indus Valley script. The ground beneath our feet or the seabed below our ships might yet give up a clue that ties everything together. But until that day comes, these mysteries serve a purpose greater than their eventual solutions. They stand as magnificent, permanent testaments. They testify to the breathtaking ingenuity of cultures that could calculate the cosmos in bronze and move mountains of stone with nothing but coordinated will. They speak of a profound spirituality that sought to build bridges to the heavens and to honor cycles of life and renewal in earth and ceremony. Most of all, they are monuments to the enduring mystery of the human journey itself, a journey marked not by knowing all the answers, but by the courage to keep asking the questions across generations. We want to hear which of these echoes from the past resonates most deeply with you. Does the lonely complexity of the Antikythera Mechanism capture your imagination, or is it the haunting, collective effort of the Moai? Perhaps the silent call of the Voynich Manuscript or the submerged geometry of Yonaguni speaks to you. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to subscribe for more explorations of history's greatest enigmas. The conversation between the past and the present is never over, and the next discovery is always just a question away.